We're here, finally! We're mere hours away from the launch of Tears of the Kingdom. How are you feeling?
The game is about to start coming out around the world very soon.
Yay!
I'm feeling triumphant.
You are?
Like we said last week, people were on edge, people were tense. I wasn't sure we were all going to collectively make it. Oof. But we did, we are here.
We're here now. Game is about to come out in mere hours. And soon we will be all playing, enjoying, and hopefully having some wonderful moments together in Hyrule, and it's going to be amazing.
This is what it's about. We've waited years.
So many years.
For this game on pins and needles, and it's finally going to happen. All that anticipation finally gets paid off.
All that anxiety that's been building inside, just get the release. It's going to be great. But we are going to talk about what happens at Nintendo after a huge game like Tears of the Kingdom launches. We've been through this. We were obviously there for the launch of Breath of the Wild, and you, sir, personally did a lot of the after stuff. A lot goes on.
We now get to celebrate and be in the moment of this great new game and play it and enjoy it. But if you're at Nintendo, it pretty quickly turns to, okay, what's the next thing?
It becomes a panic pretty soon.
There's kind of a skeleton crew that's left to oversee the thing that just happened. Right. But yeah, it's like, well, what do we have for the rest of the year? What are we doing? Let's get going.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at that and prognosticate about what might be coming.
That's a good word.
That's what we do.
That's a word of the day, toilet paper, that you got going there?
Toilet paper? How dare you?
Could be. We are also continuing with our all Zelda-themed story times. With the final part 3 of this great Mr. Aonuma story that we've been telling. Part 1, obviously, was when he ate a very dirty New York hot dog. Part 2 was my Big Al that we told last week. Part 3, we're back to the triumphant conclusion.
We're ending on a high note, and we brought in a special guest to help us.
Yes.
Someone we know super, super well because he was alongside us with so many of these Zelda projects. Yeah. Again, also working very closely with Mr. Aonuma. His name is Rob Tunstall. Maybe you've heard the name, maybe you haven't, but he was on the localization team involved in so many Zelda games. He's no longer with Nintendo, but he's going to join us today to talk about all this.
And he was there for this particular story time as well. Right. So it's going to be really fun for the three of us to just look back on some of these fond memories that we've all shared with Mr. Aonuma as a way to celebrate, again, this wonderful game coming out.
That's right.
All right, as usual, everything that we do here on this channel is made possible by our wonderful Patreon subscribers. Thank you so, so much for keeping us going. We have the best community ever.
It's true.
We have, right now in our Discord, the hot conversation about Tears of the Kingdom. We also have this big spoiler thread.
Nobody's been spoiled. And I'm happy to say.
I was just going to say, everyone is so, considerate.
Very polite about it. Yeah.
No one's been spoiled. Yeah, we really do have the most wonderful people that are in our community. So if you want to join us, we're at patreon.com/KitandKrysta. Lots of other perks as well. You get the bonus Q&As, you get early access to this podcast, and we've been doing some Patreon exclusive videos. That's been really fun.
We have 2 exclusive videos, meaning we are not going to release them to the public ever. First is an extended conversation with Frank Cifaldi, who is the founder of the Video Game History Foundation. That's a great conversation. That's about 20 minutes long, very nice and meaty.
Yeah.
And then we have a video showing off some of our The Legend of Zelda treasures, including this incredible... You want to know the story behind how we got this piece of artwork signed by Mr. Aonuma and the original artist?
Yeah.
Check out that video to find out.
Yeah, you were very... you wanted this video to be a Patreon exclusive because the treasures are too good. They're too...
Look. It's treasure for a reason.
Yes.
Okay?
They're too exclusive. So we had to release it to a very...
Yeah. When you duck your head in that treasure chest, it's really glowing back at you.
Oh my. Yeah, well, it's going back at all of our Patreon members is what it is.
I will say there are now more ways to get in if you're curious about Patreon than ever. So again, at the base level, we have a $2 a month tier. That's a great place to get started.
Yeah.
And if you want to go up from there, you can. You can get a free trial for our most popular tier, which is the $5 a month tier, which will get you early access to our Discord, all sorts of other great things. There's a new feature that Patreon has introduced that we are helping them to test.
Yeah.
Which is the free tier, which doesn't get you that much, to be honest, but it gets you into Patreon, gets you understanding what that Patreon experience is like. You can vote in the polls that we include in this podcast. A lot of times we ask for feedback via Patreon, or we ask for your input. You can be a part of that. So again, if you're just curious about what Patreon is and how it works, 3 great ways to get in.
One is completely free forever too. So
True.
if that is
Yeah.
a way for you, then great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful that Patreon has been such a great partner to us, and yeah, Patreon is what keeps all of this going. So
Indeed.
yeah, hopefully you guys join us. Awesome. The other cool thing that we're doing right now is trying to get back to Japan this year. And we're getting excited for that. We are doing that via Super Thanks and Super Chat, which you can do right there on YouTube. Just, anything you can do to help support us. Japan is very expensive and we need the funding to help us go to Japan and make all of these great videos for you guys. So if you're wanting to see awesome content from Japan from us this year, then consider a Super Thanks or a Super Chat.
That's right.
Every little bit helps. The meter is moving and it's great.
I was going to call it the thermometer, but that's actually what it's called. It's a thermometer. So
The
silly
thermometer?
Me. The thermometer.
That's, yes, that is
I've created
English,
a new word, which was a word that already existed. It is Zelda week.
Oh man,
The
it is
aforementioned Zelda week.
Yes.
So let's just run through the schedule real fast. By now, these videos are already out on the channel. Please watch them if you haven't. We have ranked all of the links.
There's a lot of links.
People are mad about that.
Of course.
We have released our video ranking all of the Zelda music.
Oh, boy.
People are also mad about that.
I'm sure. Just be mad. Be
We are here to be your objects of ire.
I guess.
Yes.
I mean, as long as it's sparking some conversation,
Right.
we're here for it.
We have also done, this is a feel-good video, we've said goodbye to Breath of the
You
Wild.
can't be mad about that,
by
guys.
visiting some of our favorite places, sharing some of our favorite stories. It's a warm and fuzzy one.
Warm and fuzzy, a little emotional, but yes, needed to be done.
And then tomorrow, depending on when you're listening to this, Friday, we are streaming Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes.
The
From
first
beginning.
hours.
We're just
From
gonna-
the very
we're just
beginning.
gonna-
yes.
We're just going to go in blind and go for it.
Yeah, you said, what are you going to do on Thursday night when this game comes out at 9 p.m. our time? Because you can't play, you're like taunting me, because you can't play it, because you got to start fresh on the stream.
You gotta start fresh on the stream.
What are you
and
gonna
I
do?
might be at a midnight launch event. Who knows?
Are you having solidarity with me? Are you not streaming yourself? I guess that's a no.
No.
Thanks for nothing.
That's gonna be a no. Unless we're at the midnight launch event, and then I will be with you, and then that means I can't play.
You'll be streaming from midnight to 4
I'll
a.m.
be in line
half asleep
streaming.
in this live stream.
I'll be
Spoiling me.
I'll be taking a nap, and you'll be streaming.
I
Is what
see.
is what's happening on
Right.
Friday.
Well, that's pretty much
Yeah.
how it usually goes.
Hey,
Looking
thank
ahead,
you.
we also have a great Super Kit and Krysta 64 episode, which is coming out this weekend for our
yeah.
Patreon subscribers a couple days early. It's a
Very
great perk.
exciting.
We went to several Japanese supermarkets in search of game-themed snacks.
We found some doozies, guys.
Will not spoil what happened.
Yeah.
But we found some great
Some
stuff.
stuff happened.
Some stuff that's even not of the snack variety that we still got.
Yeah.
And we tried out.
Yes, exactly. And there was some moments that I just never expected in my whole life to happen in that video. That happened. Anyways, if that's not a tease for you guys, I don't know what is. So be on the lookout for that next great Super Kit and
That's
Krysta
right.
64 vlog.
It's a good one.
Yes.
All right. Before we get into our wonderful story, Mr. Rob Tunstall, we've got to say this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Yay! Thank you,
Right.
BetterHelp.
So think of yourself in any given week. How much time are you spending giving to other people, giving yourself to other people, giving your time, versus giving back to yourself?
Yeah. It's so easy to get caught up in a way where you're maybe outputting more of yourself than you're intaking.
Right.
So it is good to check in with a licensed BetterHelp therapist to make sure that you're filling your cup back up. Because if you don't, you're just gonna be running on empty, and that's not gonna be good for anybody around you or yourself.
That can be a tough balance to get right because there's so much in life where you do have to give of yourself and it feels like it's constantly coming at you. But yeah, it is very important to take time for yourself, to recharge and put yourself first. So yeah, that's where BetterHelp can help.
Exactly. It's tough to, be so stretched and burned out. That feeling I think everyone has from time to time, us included, and having someone there that can talk to you about, how you're feeling and even give you really actionable steps to feel better is really great. And you can, talk to a BetterHelp therapist any way. You can text them, you can chat with them, you can do video conference, you can do just a phone call, anything that you feel comfortable with, anything that you have time for. you're able to do that with BetterHelp, which is really nice.
It's very flexible. It is very easy. We love it. So find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/KittenKrysta today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/KittenKrysta.
Put the link right over here and also in the description below. All right, shall we get into our story time with our special guest, Rob Tunstall?
Let's do it.
Well, very excited today to be joined by the one and only Rob Tunstall. Hi, Rob. How's it going?
Hello. Good. Yeah. How are you?
Good. We were just chatting. It's been a while since we were able to talk, but Rob, me, and Kit worked together on a ton of Zelda projects in our day at Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to tell one of those stories today. But I think we wanted to just get started by letting you tell the good people here what you used to do at Nintendo.
Yeah. Well, I think, when did I start? I would have been 2012, like spring 2012. So almost exactly 9 years ago. No, wait, how does math work? 11 years ago. It would be 11 years ago now. I started, I'd actually worked in the testing department for a while on a contract in a group called Developer Guideline Comprehension, which was about making sure developers were following specific guidelines. And I don't remember anything else, so please have no follow-ups about that. But about a year after that, I got a job in the Treehouse and the localization department at Nintendo of America, and worked there for about 7 years. I left in early 2019. But yeah, during my time there, I think I started on, it was like right in the middle of Animal Crossing New Leaf, it would have been. I was on that for a while. I think my next project after that was actually, I think what we're going to talk about in a little bit, A Link Between Worlds. That was kind of my, it would have been Pikmin 3 after that. Pikmin 3, A Link Between Worlds. Yokai Watch maybe was after that. Eventually I was like on ARMS. I was on the first Splatoon, I think. I was on ARMS. I was on Super Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild.
Yep.
That was kind of an all hands on deck. Chipped in on the Fire Emblem, the one where it's the two countries. Oh god. It's so hard to remember stuff.
Fates, Conquest, Revelations.
It was Fates.
Yeah.
It was that. Yeah.
The three games.
On that.
Yeah.
I think I'm not credited on that because I was on it for like a day. And I remember one of the writers on it came up to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to be credited on that?" And I was just like, "No." It's fine. Like,
so humble.
I didn't feel like I did anything. I was like, I translated a support conversation, and then I was off onto something else.
Hey, those are important stuff. So
it's true. And then I think the last title I was on was Fire Emblem 3 Houses. And,
okay.
Yeah, so that took me up to the end. I'm sure there was other stuff in there, but those are the big hitters, I think.
Yeah.
And we've been sharing all these Zelda stories about things that we did with Mr. Aonuma and other developers over the years. And what people may not know is that you were really there for pretty much all of those with us. So you were kind of the third part of our Triforce.
You are.
Which one am I? Wisdom, strength.
You can decide.
I think you're wisdom.
You're probably
I'm
wisdom.
pretty sure you're
Certainly
wisdom. Yeah.
I'll accept.
What is
that,
it like working on localization for a Zelda game compared to other games or series that you worked on? Like, what is unique and different about doing that for Zelda?
It feels like really, I mean, you always take your job seriously. I think working on a Zelda title, it feels like holy. You're like, we really need to get this right. like this really needs to be good. Like this, I don't know. It's like someone asked you to like translate like an ancient text or something. It's like, it feels like very like momentous and important. You're like, I hope I do this justice. Hopefully we did, but it has a real, I don't know. I mean, that's how the games felt to me growing up too. They always had this like almost like sacred quality to them. Working on it was definitely the same way. It just felt like, I don't know, you're like tapped into something like really important.
And I think localization is a function where people are still kind of grasping how it works and like what the flow of the work is. Can you talk a little bit about that of, you know, once you start working, like how are you working with the development team? How are you receiving information just to kind of more broadly get people aware of what happens in localization?
Sure. So when I started, there were kind of two different approaches. So one case would be a game is done, like a Japanese version of it exists. It might have even been released. So you're kind of working with a completely finished text to put out in English and Spanish, French, all the European languages, like a localized version of it, like quite a bit down the line sometimes. And that's obviously in some sense, like the text is settled, like it's not going to change anymore. So that makes it easy in one sense, but it's also, you're also working in a situation where it's just like, okay, well, everyone who developed this game kind of moved on to the next thing. So like, how easy is it to get, there'll obviously be like points of contact, and you'll be able to get information. Hopefully you can get all the information you need because, regardless of how it's being done, like you're kind of in constant communication with, the dev team, be that like, this ancillary dev team who's helping you now localize it, or, the kind of original dev team. You're constantly like sending them questions, having meetings, emails back and forth every day. So that kind of like, staggered approach was one way. And that was increasingly less common. Even when I started, I think most of the titles I worked on were actually done pretty much simultaneously. So like, the Japanese version and the localized version would just release simultaneously, worldwide release date. So obviously that's kind of a like, you're building the plane while you're flying it kind of situation. But then you're just like very like tight knit, like closely working together with, the devs as they're making the game. And it's really great. It feels really, a lot of times when you're translating something, you don't have access to the person who wrote the text, just in different areas of translation. But on a game where you're kind of like, the game is being localized as it's being made, you're just completely, it feels like you're obviously physically separated, but it feels like you're pretty much embedded in the dev team, and you can ask questions, context, like, what does this mean? What's the intent behind this? Like, this is ambiguous. This could be read two ways. What way should it be read? Like, what should this actually mean? And so it, I think I often see like people, talk about localization where they're like, well, obviously like the translators missed the intent. And I'm like, 9 times out of 10, they just asked the developer what the intent was. So like they knew what the intent, like, I don't know. I feel like that's a situation that I think people like outside of localization imagine a lot probably. And I think most of the time it doesn't happen because you can just talk to them. You can just say, hey, what does this mean? Or what should the effect of this be on someone reading it? That kind of thing. So those were kind of like the two big ways. And I think now probably most of the time it is like simultaneous release, unless like it's kind of like a legacy title, something that came out a long time ago and it's getting like a translation that it never had one. But I think most things are simultaneous. I was actually thinking about it this morning and thinking back and realizing that A Link Between Worlds was actually a huge outlier. It was, and this is just a matter of public record, if you look at the release dates, the North American release date for that was, I think, like probably like the week before Black Friday, and the Japanese release date was, I think, like 6 weeks later in the beginning of January. So the English version of that actually had to come out first. So that was almost like, I don't know, like laying the track down in front of the train, but like not even having track most of the time is kind of what it felt like. So that was a really interesting situation. And like, yeah, I'd never had that situation again. Any other time I was localizing a title, it was just that one. I think after that, for the most part, titles became pretty regularly would just be like a simultaneous worldwide release. But yeah, I mean, that was tough. That put pressure on everyone, right? Because like the Japanese team, the Japanese writers are like, they're having to put together the text maybe quicker than they thought they would have to. because, they have to be feeding us, the translators and the editors and everyone over on the English side who are trying to get the English version of the game done. So it was pretty hectic. And then I think I was like in the middle of that. We went on this trip to New York. I mean, I don't know. I was able to get away. So it must have been, the project must have been in good shape because I was gone for a week. But
that trip was in the beginning of October. So it would have been like, less than a month before the English release date, which is, I know, probably crunch time for you guys on the localization time. So yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it must have been done. It must have been like I don't know, it must have been in testing by then, I guess.
You were writing it in your hotel room at 2:00 in the morning?
Yeah.
Is that what happened? Okay.
Right.
The other thing that I think there's a misconception about localization is a lot of people think that it's just like a straight translation from the Japanese text, but especially at Nintendo, that wasn't the case really at all. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of what localization actually entailed, and what the difference is between localization and straight translation?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, when someone like talks about like a straight translation or direct translation, my response is kind of like, well, I don't really know what you mean by that, because like if I really did a direct translation, it would be sort of incomprehensible. I mean, I guess maybe that would be like a literal translation, but like I feel like there's not really any, like, if you're aiming to make like good, like legible, like readable, like English text that like carries the same meaning and makes, the person reading it feel the same thing that, a Japanese speaking person would feel reading the original Japanese text, I wouldn't even call them liberties. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like people get kind of like bent out of shape with like the idea of like things being different or like incorporating like English slang or colloquialisms into a translation. But to me, I'm just like, well, that's what translation is. Like, you make, like, this sounds natural in Japanese, it should sound natural in English, at the end. And like one of the ways that, in the treehouse we went about that was that we kind of had actually kind of like a 3-step approach. So we would have like a translation, which, like kind of like the first pass, which would be done by like bilinguals like myself. And then we'd have the translation column, and then we'd have the rewrite column, and then there'd be maybe some back and forth, like clarifying things through that. And then, an editor pass. And then that's all before it gets sent to testing, which involves like text checking. So then there's even more like, cleanup of the text. So it's a pretty like thorough approach, I guess. Like, lots of people like, look at the text. Lots of people like question, things like, should this actually be like this? Like, translators and writers like, collaborate a lot, figuring out like, what something should actually be like, or like a translator might look at like the end product and be like, hey, actually something got lost along the way and I think we need to put it back in, and you have a discussion about that. And so it's very like collaborative, thorough. It's not really like one person's voice. It's really like a team effort, I would say. And yeah, I think it's a very successful approach too. Like I think all the titles I was a part of, like I look at the end product text and it's like, it's very clean. It's got like heart. It's got character. Like, yeah, I think it works.
Nintendo's been the gold standard in localization for a long time. Like, what do you think Nintendo is doing that other companies are not, that makes it stand out?
It's a good question. I know originally it was kind of a big thing for the people who basically like started the Nintendo of America localization department, that that they actually like hire people who had like a writing background. I think a lot of localization previously was handled like just by translators, and even maybe not even like people whose like the target language was their native language, which is usually kind of a best practice. Like you kind of want to translate into the language that like is your native language. ideally. Some people can do it and are fantastic, but they're geniuses. I don't know how to do it. But I think there's always been an emphasis on hiring people from like who have like creative writing backgrounds. I think finding and inserting people who are like kind of writers first into the localization process, and I think treating it more as something more akin to games writing than just translation. It seems to have been the approach, like at least from my perspective, I think. And then I think, just the thoroughness, like I talked about, like that kind of like, you have like those 3 passes and then you have like, even further testing after that. Like, I think it's just, they're very serious about it. Yeah.
So let's get into this story of A Link Between Worlds and all the nonsense we got up to in New York. I'm curious, just for a starting point, like when we would contact you about one of these PR trips or one of these PR opportunities, like would you roll your eyes of like, oh gosh, these people are up at it again? Like, obviously that's not your like day-to-day job. Like how did you feel about doing that kind of stuff?
You mean at you?
In general, or us.
Definitely at
like,
Kit, not at me.
Thinking, like, oh no,
you liked
Kit
me.
and Krysta again. No, I don't know. It was always fun. I don't know. Like, yeah, if I got like, I mean, I would say I always had 2 reactions. I was like, 1, this is going to be fun. 2, it's like, this is terrifying. Oh God, because I have to like do all that interpreting and it's like super stressful. So it was always like kind of both. But yeah, I think every kind of like, PR thing, like trips, like this was the Comic-Con, but like, stuff going down to E3, it's always like, this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be very tired during and after. But yeah, I mostly have positive emotions about it, I
think. One of those things that strikes me about those trips is like, you are really our gate to communicating with these developers. Like, obviously we don't understand a word of what they are saying. So it is really like upon you to like help us out and keep us in the know. Like, how do you decide like what is worthwhile to even tell us? Obviously, if we're having like a direct conversation, that's important. But there's a lot of like side conversation, which you could just completely leave us out of.
I think a lot of times it's just like sort of like pacing yourself, like on how much like mental energy you have. Because like, I think the big question is like, yeah, side conversation is happening. Was I really paying attention, or was I like taking a breather myself?
Yeah.
Like, depending on what it is. So yeah, I think, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it kind of just has to be a judgment call, right? Like yeah, that was important. They really need to know that.
We have seen like firsthand how mentally taxing like doing long-term translation, and oftentimes when it gets to be very like specific in terms of the jargon or the terminology, we've seen people at like an E3 have to physically lay down after translating a very intense session. So we really appreciate the effort that went into that. For these things where you were doing like a panel at Comic-Con, like you didn't have a lot of time to prep. Like, was that hard for you and Mr. Aonuma to kind of get your back and forth rapport down, or was that pretty like quickly just locked in?
I think this was like, maybe I think I had gone to E3 earlier that year, and maybe that was my first time really doing that kind of interpretation, because that would have been pretty early on. This is kind of my second time really doing it. So I was like super like scared. Like, I'm sure like I got to the airport in Seattle and I was like, what if maybe I just don't get on the plane? What if I just walk into or something? I always like think things like that, and I'm like, no, I should go. And then I really, I'm glad I went. But yeah, I think so. I remember before we did the panel, we did have a few interviews. We did like, we were in some office, right? And then maybe did Nintendo have an office?
We were probably in we were in the old Nintendo New York office. We did like a day of interviews. That's when he ate the dirty hot dog. And then we did, and then we did like just a little bit of prep. But that was like, it was pretty, the time was very, very limited. So
Yeah, we had a little bit of time together. I think we had done like a video conference, I think, and they like I think they like sprung on me that I was going to interpret the meeting. I thought I was just like going to sit in, and then I think they were like, "Well, since you're going to be interpreting for Mr. Aonuma, could you just interpret this whole meeting?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." You know? But what I was going to say is, I mean, Aonuma-san's like such a like old hand at, so like interpreting is obviously a skill, but like being interpreted for is a skill as well. Like knowing how to talk, like, because you kind of like, you don't want to like speak in like huge long paragraphs and then it's like, okay, huge long paragraph Japanese, translator furiously writing, maybe continues writing after the speaking is done for a little bit, pause, huge long paragraph of English, and then, you know, repeat that, because like then there's just so much time where the reporter is sitting there not really engaged with what's happening, you know, like it doesn't feel like an interview at that point. And like Aonuma-san's really good at this. Miyamoto-san was really good when I think I only interpreted for him a couple of times, but he would, you know, he would speak in like these shorter bursts. And it's really kind of challenge. One of the challenging things about Japanese is like oftentimes like the verb like conjugation or like the like, you know, like the suffix that makes it like positive or negative doesn't come till the end of the sentence. So like you're like listening to the whole sentence and you're just like, so is he saying we did this or
Good
we
or
didn't
bad?
do this?
Good or bad?
Yeah.
Well, that could be bad, right? Like it's like,
yeah,
did you launch a game or not?
right. So like you kind of have to like, and you know, I think the people who are good at being interpreted for like get in the habit of kind of like putting that stuff on like Front Street, like kind of like, let me say the really important thing first. Let me go back, like, and but like not talking in a way that's like a naturalizing, but just like kind of like speaking with like consideration for the fact that like the interpreter has to like grasp the big idea of what you're saying and like kind of putting that out first and then filling in the details rather than like sprinkling details and then like big idea and then like, well, hopefully the interpreter put it together or understood the journey, as opposed to like, I don't know, it's kind of like, I guess, like being a good storyteller or speaker in general, but I think there is like an added kind of component of like just wanting to, you know, deliver the information in kind of like bite-sized chunks that still like all flow together when they're put together. I think it's really hard, but I think he's also just done it so much. So in that sense, my job was pretty easy. So yeah, I think a lot of credit has to go to him, really. Like I think he's just actually good at speaking and good at being interpreted for and good at telling stories.
So we did the interview, we did the panel, they both go great. But something we would always try to do with these trips is like, what other value could we get out of them being there? And at the time, there was a person in the New York office who we affectionately refer to as Hollywood-san, who we should say was credited in the Mario movie. So congratulations.
So he really is Hollywood-san now.
Nice.
But he at the time was in charge of these sort of, I don't even know what to call them, like special projects videos, one-off videos. And he put together this idea for this video that we could do with Mr. Aonuma, again, promoting A Link Between Worlds, where we would sort of chase him through the streets of New York City, saying like, oh, I'm here in New York, but they want me to get back to work. So if they find me, they're going to send me straight back to the office, was kind of the premise. And I don't know about you. I didn't really think too much about this. I was like, oh yeah, we'll do that after we finish the really important stuff. But the kicker was that you and I were in it.
Yeah. Did we know that?
I don't think so.
Maybe it's been a late admission in their planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think, because I was planning most of the script and the, you know, like the quote unquote storyboards. It was really not a storyboard. It's nothing fancy. With Hollywood-san, and we had plans of using that as a promotional video as part of the launch week stuff that we were doing for A Link Between Worlds. And at that point, I think the devs were, and Aonuma-san in particular, were very open to this kind of these kinds of like zany videos. It kind of stemmed from a few E3s ago when we had that big developer developer like presence, and they all did like crazy stuff on social media with us. And so I think there was some bit of precedence. So it would always struck me as interesting. And as I look back on that video, I'm like, wow, they let us do this. It's so weird because it's such like I don't know. It didn't feel like it was something super serious. It didn't have like a lot of perceived like traditional value up front. Like it wasn't like a big media interview. We could have used the day to do like another 6 interviews or something like that and have more of that like very tangible, like you meet with this outlet, this is the result that you get. Instead, we gallivanted around New York City for basically the whole day doing this. And so it always struck me as it being like odd that this all got approved somehow. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, looking back, yeah, I mean, now that you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, that was weird. I think at the time, like, I was like new enough that I was just like, I guess this is what you do. I guess I'm going to do this every 6 months, right? But no, it never. I don't think anything quite that strange ever really happened again.
So in true
we were
fashion, he had quite an epic scope for this video. So we started in Central Park. This was like an all-day shoot. We started in Central Park, and then we went like to a few other locations in sort of Midtown, and then we ended up around the office of the production company that we were using, which was in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So, and we also did have like, he must have had a pretty good budget for this because there was a lot of stuff that they added. Like they added the little like wall Aonuma later.
Yeah.
The icon, like this, the effect of him jumping into the wall. So we were just like, yeah, I guess you'll do this later. And it turned out great. But at the time we were like, what? I'm not sure I know what you want me to do.
There was a great shot of him on, like, literally, we were at Wall Street, and he was like very instant. And Wall Street is very far away from Columbus Circle, like on the other side of town. So he had made us all go down, basically trompsing around New York City. And there was a great shot where Mr. Aonuma like flattened himself against a brick wall, I think, in that neighborhood. And that's where he wanted to do like that chalk Mr. Aonuma effect, which was amazing. But yeah, I was like, how did this get approved? Like, we would never, like, years later, we like don't even think about asking for something as ambitious and sort of out of the box as what we did on that trip.
The whole trip felt pretty magical.
My high stepping in that video, Rob. I think your running technique is outstanding. I'm just going to say that. You gotta ham it up. You're in a great video. You gotta look like a goofball.
You guys had like the goofy sunglasses on too. And the other thing that's really funny was that you guys are both very tall, and I think you're maybe around the same height.
Rob is very tall. Rob is much taller.
Are you taller than Kit, or are you
taller?
Yeah.
Way taller. Okay,
a bit way taller. Yeah,
a bit way.
Because there's a really great in the thumbnail. There's a great shot of you guys wearing the goofy sunglasses. You both look just so tall compared to Mr. Aonuma, who's not very tall, and you're standing sort of back to back, and you do look sort of a little bit menacing, like both of you actually, even though it's supposed to be kind of jokey, but like to have these big tall guys chasing little Mr. Aonuma across New York City was a pretty cool spectacle, honestly. Like, and you guys totally hammed it up, and I loved it. It was really funny.
I do remember being somewhat confused about like the tone. I was like, is Aonuma-san in danger? Like, are we actually a threat? Like, what are we doing?
So I tackle him and cuff him, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah, we will often sort of lament, Nintendo really pulling back with their developers, and you don't really see them very much. Like maybe you'll see them reading off a teleprompter in a Nintendo Direct. Like that's an example of the sort of thing that we used to do it just had a lot of heart to it. Again, it's hard to like quantify the sales impact, but it did really reflect that sense of playfulness that they have. And like, we love Mr. Aonuma. I think we want everybody else to love Mr. Aonuma because we know how great a guy he was, and that did sort of help to impart that in some sort of indirect way to the fans.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, he hopefully became even more beloved. He already was so beloved at the time. I remember, like, after the Comic-Con panel, so many cosplayers had come to that panel. There were like so many people dressed up as Zelda characters, and we got like a picture of him like surrounded by them after the end. And I remember I had like this little conversation with him after. It was just like, it looks like the famous picture of like Jim Henson surrounded by all of the Muppets.
All the Muppets,
like, I was just like you're on. I was like, man, you're on that level now. Like, that's like you're that kind of creator. I think, like, you've inspired all these people to, just love what you've done so much. It was like really great, And I don't know. Oh, go ahead.
Beyond high stepping through New York, did you have a favorite moment of working with Mr. Aonuma or interacting with Aonuma? Because you had just as many as we did, if not more.
I remember, this was a few years later, but at the Game Awards when Breath of the Wild won, I think we were all there too. I was there with Aonuma-san and I forgot his name now, the other director, great guy, Fujibashi-san, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I think it was a really funny experience because, like, I don't know, like, those shows come together like so hot, like everything's like pretty last minute, like we're kind of like figuring everything out the same last time. So like navigating there was that like kind of like reveal where like Aonuma-san like comes out of the mist and pulls the master sword out, and like we were up on stage like rehearsing that and blocking it and like figuring it out like on the fly. And I remember like just being struck by like how cheerful and good natured he was while this was happening. Cause like internally I was just like, what are we doing? What am I supposed to do? How is this going to work? And he was just like, it'll work out. We'll be fine. It's like, I'm glad you're here.
That's the mindset. Like, we've all got our fingers crossed.
Yeah. He was very good in those situations. He was always really very good. Like good with rolling with the punches and sort of just going with it, which I think is such a great quality for a developer, probably to have, because you probably meet with so much unexpected stuff along the way, and he does seem like he has a good kind of attitude about that kind of stuff. So
for sure.
So I think we've all had our great moments and interactions with Mr. Aonuma, and it's so fun to remember those. Rob, after you left Nintendo, you've sort of taken on a new career change. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So pretty much the whole time I was working at Nintendo, I was also doing some film scoring, independent films, for a few directors I had met earlier on in my like time in Japan and elsewhere. And yeah, I kind of, when it was 2019, I just decided to leave Nintendo and maybe focus a bit more on that. One of the directors I was working with was like getting a chance to make like, a pretty substantial feature film for the first time. And I was going to score that. And I was like, I probably can't have a day job and do this. So I would need to like, I don't know, like I could have been like, well, I could take like a sabbatical or something. But I decided, I think, and I kind of thought somewhere down the line I might move away from the Seattle area as well, which I more or less did. I didn't move that far away, but I moved far enough away, right? And so yeah, I tried to give music a real shot. So yeah, I've been working scoring, films and games a bit, and I also still do localization freelance as well. So I think the last thing I worked on that came out was actually Three Hopes, the Fire Emblem Three Hopes. So I worked on Three Houses and Three Hopes, even though one was internal and one was external. So
that's
weird
amazing.
how that worked out. Yeah,
it's a good game. Good writing.
any of the games that you've scored that you'd want to shout out if people want to check those out?
Oh, sure. There's a few things that are still in development, but there is a local Seattle indie title called Riposte with an exclamation point, which is a party game, fencing party game, where it's usually 2-on-2, and like one player is controlling the sword and one is the shield, and you're trying to kind of coordinate. It's really fun, actually. It's hard to describe, so hopefully people give it a shot. And I would say also the film Ike Boys, which I scored, came out, I think it's on digital rental, but it's basically about some teenagers in Oklahoma who are given superpowers by a cursed anime DVD. It's got anime sections, it's got tokusatsu, like Godzilla style sections, it's got like Kamen Rider DNA in it as well. So if you're into any of that stuff, you'll probably enjoy it.
Awesome. That's awesome.
You are a man of many talents, Rob.
Yeah, we were always inspired, Rob, by you and how you sort of, left Nintendo to follow your dream, and here we are. We did the same, inspired by you. So yeah. It truly was like amazing when you when you were leaving. We were really sad, obviously, but we were also really excited for you because that's what you were doing. You were leaving to like follow your, dream of becoming a musician. And we thought that was really amazing. So glad to hear that everything has been going really well for you.
Yeah. And I'm glad. I mean, it seems like things are going well with you too. So I'm glad about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, if people want to find you online, where can they look you up?
Oh boy. I am Robert Tunstall on Twitter, while that still exists. Rob Tunstall Music on Instagram and TikTok. Hopefully those stay around.
Awesome.
Who knows? It's all a shot in the dark at this point, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rob, for hanging out with us. It was so great to catch up and just share some of our shared wonderful memories that we have with Anima-san.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And we're back. So in our Never a Minute segment, you had the good idea last week to not end with a downer of ranking the bottom of the barrel of Zelda games. So we're stopping at 10. You can figure out the rest on your own.
Yeah. I mean, maybe one day we'll have like a downer episode where we just talk about the bottom of the barrel Zelda games, which there are some. But I wanted to, for Zelda Week, we have to stay on the positive and talk about great, wonderful things that we love about the Zelda series. And so we're going to be talking about our top moments of all time.
I was going back through my list today before we came here, and I feel like you and I may have interpreted this differently.
Uh-oh.
I think your list is going to be moments from games, whereas mine are moments about me that involve Zelda.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
but that's fun. I think it's good.
That's fun this way.
Yeah.
So mine are moments from games. How did you know that I was going to interpret it?
Because I know you.
Oh.
I was like, hold on. This is not what she's going to do.
Oh. Well, okay. Well, that's fine. Well, that's a good... some differences that we can share.
Point
some different stories. Yes. Well, why don't you go first?
All right. So my first is just my first time seeing and playing a Zelda game.
Right.
So I think I've told this, generally before, but when I was in elementary school, there was a friend that I had who I would go to his house after school on certain days because my mom was working late and couldn't pick me up. And at this point, I did not have an NES, and his house was one of my first exposures to the NES, and it was just this incredible. I love going because I was like, wow, I get to this thing I want. He has it. He had an incredible library of games. I don't know if this guy must have been loaded or something.
Maybe his parents were like huge gamers.
I don't think so.
No. Interesting.
He was a subscriber to Nintendo Power, so he had all these issues of Nintendo Power that I would just like pour through.
Okay.
Yeah.
This person's house sounds great, by the way.
It was nice.
That's like a good friend that you want to make.
It was fun. It was like, great. School's over. I'm going over to his house for like an hour, wait for my mom, get some Capri Suns.
Oh, little orange slices
some cheese and crackers or something. This is great. And I remember, I was like, oh, this cartridge is gold. First of all. Like,
that's right.
So at this point, Zelda 1 and 2 were out. So I was like, wow, why are these cartridges gold? This must be really a special thing. Yeah. And I remember playing those games, and I was like, wow, this is so different from everything else that I had seen on the NES up to that point, which honestly, being honest, was not a lot. Because before then it was, Mario or other games that were more sort of platformy in feel. And here you go, top-down. It's about an adventure, about solving mysteries with some action spread into it. So I just thought, wow, I've never really seen or experienced a game like this. And if you get, sucked in with the music and all of that, and that's where I had my scary experiences for the first time.
Oh, you had it at your friend's house?
Well, they continued once I got those games, but
Were you scared with your friend? Was your friend scared?
Well, sometimes he would step out to go do something, and I would be there by myself. And I remember it would be.
Was he the same age as you?
Yes.
Okay.
And I remember sometimes, when the sun starts to set early in the fall and the winter.
Yeah.
It would get dark in that room. So it would go from daytime to nighttime. And so again, I would be playing this dungeon while the sun's going down, and I didn't think to turn on a light. And
sometimes you were alone.
And I would get scared playing these dungeons.
At your friend's house?
Or I would get the scary game over screen on Zelda 2.
Do you still talk to this person?
No.
Oh, that's too bad. I wish we could find him.
This was a long time ago. I've lost touch with him.
Find him. That'd be so cool.
If you're listening or watching this, please drop me a line.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be amazing.
But yeah, that was my first. I very vividly remember my first time seeing him playing Zelda games. Oh my gosh.
That's so funny. That you had that scary experience, not even alone with your own game and console. It's somebody else's
house. In a strange house.
Yeah. And also it's a little bit embarrassing, if you're I always try to be tough in front of my friends. No, I can't be I can't. And we'll watch scary movies, and you're oh, I'm not scared, but you're terrified.
Oh yeah.
I watched Chucky with my friends, and I was so scared, but I tried to put on a brave face,
Good for you.
Anyways, well, that's a great moment. As you said, mine are in-game Zelda moments, so do a little transition from your real life moments to my in-game moments. But my first one is that reveal in Ocarina of Time where Zelda was actually Sheik.
Oh, yes.
That blew my mind.
That was a legitimate surprise.
First time playing. And again, Ocarina of Time was my first sort of Zelda game that I played by myself, all the way through. Yeah. Obviously, I had played other NES Zelda games before with friends, or watched somebody play, or watched pieces of it, but I never really had the start to finish Zelda experience until Ocarina of Time, and that moment was just, I did not see that coming, at all. I could not wrap my little child brain around how, this princess was also this ninja, basically. It's such a cool, clever way of developing the character, and I was really just impressed with how, after playing a lot of Mario games where Princess Peach, we talked about a lot, is just sort of a prop, where then you transition to a Zelda game and you're Princess Zelda, could have been a prop too, and certainly in some of the early games may have been, but they really took the series in this other direction, making Zelda into a very action-oriented character, and someone that's very important to the story, and very much she's also fighting for her kingdom and stuff like that. So yeah, I just thought that was sort of a really cool way to introduce this other side of Zelda, and then you can see it continuing through the series as well.
My next is also Ocarina of Time based.
Oh.
So when that game came out and I was in school, strangely that became a game that everybody in the school was playing.
It was. Yeah.
Which I don't know exactly why. It wasn't the game that I would have picked to draw everybody into games, but it was. And, I certainly had my group of friends who all had a Nintendo 64 and were all playing games daily and all the time, and we would talk about it. But there were a lot of people who I didn't look at as people who played games who were. The quote jocks were playing Ocarina of Time. Everybody was. And this became such a hot topic of discussion at recess and just around schools. Well, who's going to beat this game first?
Oh.
And I thought, you know what? I can't let these fake gamers outdo me. So I'm going to be the first person.
Did you do it?
In the group to beat Ocarina of Time. I did.
Really?
I was the first one, yes.
Did you look at a guide?
I'm trying to think of...
Actually, that game wasn't that hard, dungeon-wise,
Well, this was also 1996, so it's what...
Did they have Nintendo Power?
What guide...
like strategy guides?
Well, this was right when the game came out. I don't know. I remember just hustling my way through that game.
Oh.
And what did it get me? What credit did it get me? Nothing. But
you mean people weren't knocking down your door?
No, I wasn't.
Have you be like the Ocarina of Time guru or something?
I wasn't. But that was a very memorable moment of that game. I still don't remember in my whole time of school of people being that into an individual game all the time. And again, I don't know why that was the game. It's a great game, but if you were not into games, I don't know what it was about it that would have sucked you in.
Yeah.
But that's what happened.
I wonder if there's something else going on around that time that made the story or the characters very interesting. I can't recall what was happening around the time Ocarina of Time launched, but I do remember that too. Like it was a very hot topic of conversation around school, and that's how we used to get all of our info. Like there was no social media back then,
right?
So you just it would be like schoolyard chit chat. That would be like the way that you get your next game recommendation,
right?
And what your friends are playing and stuff. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like what happened with Animal Crossing during the pandemic, where like people that you never thought in a million years, like Danny Trejo, chugging Kool-Aid on a skateboard is playing Animal Crossing. You know, it's like okay, this is something to pay attention to. Yeah. My second moment, and this is both. I like the in-game moment a lot, but I also have a little bit of a personal piece of this too, is just like that beginning stretch of Skyward Sword, where you really like get a sense of all these different characters, not just Link and Zelda, because we talk about their relationship in that game all the time, and it's really amazing to see that, but also like Groose and his little gang of like quote unquote bullies or whatever, and even like Zelda's dad, and you get to meet Fi, and like there's a lot of like sort of almost like movie-esque stuff that happens at the beginning of Skyward Sword. There's a lot of
Cinematic tutorials.
Cinematic tutorials. Beautiful music though, so it's okay. But I feel like Skyward Sword was also sort of the game that I felt like we really started to work on deeply for Zelda. Like I started at Nintendo like weeks before Phantom Hourglass came out. Like I remember like seeing the marketing for that, but it was like a little bit too late to do anything.
Yeah.
And then what game came out after? I can't even remember, but
Spirit Tracks.
Spirit Tracks. You worked on Spirit Tracks. I made a train whistle, so that was a thing. But I don't feel like probably because my job had also changed around that time, where I was doing more than just like sort of smaller marketing things. But I really felt like Skyward Sword was the game where I felt like started my Zelda marketing career path.
It really did.
And then from then on, you and I basically worked on every Zelda game. And so I have very fond memories of working on Skyward Sword. I remember working very, very closely with some of the writers in our localization team, and just like really getting a sense of like what it means to like launch a game, and especially a game with such a heavy storyline. Like, what does it mean to localize a game? What does that look like? I was learning so much about like that process, and it was all from launching this game. And then we did so many cool things. We talked about some of those in our Treasures video, and getting a chance to work closely with developers for the first time. So I really remember that kind of Skyward Sword being like the kickoff of working on like Zelda games in a very deep way at Nintendo. So I always remember like that story being something that really stuck with me, and then like that kind of moment in my career really sticking with me as well.
Well, I have two more. I always get an extra one just in case we have doubles.
I have two more too.
The third one, I don't think I've talked about this before. So it was the announcement of Ocarina of Time 3D.
Oh, yes.
Which was the year that we announced the 3DS.
Yes.
At E3, we had a very unusual way of revealing that game. So it was not in the press conference that we did that morning. But we used to do this event called the Developer Roundtable.
I remember that,
which would happen Tuesday night. Tuesday was the first day. So Tuesday was a crazy long day for us because you get up at like 6 a.m., get ready to do this press conference at 9 a.m., do a whole day at the booth, all the debriefs, the reports, the meetings. And then when the E3 actually ended at like 5 or 6, we would have this developer roundtable.
Right. That you were always in charge of.
That I was in charge of for several years.
Right.
So we had this fun idea, or the team in Japan had this idea, was we want to announce Ocarina of Time 3D in that event. And we want to make that a major talking point for the people who come, and it'll give us sort of an additional
little
talking point at the end of the day. Like, wow, look at all these great things that Nintendo had on the first day of E3. We'd think about that a lot.
Yeah.
Of how to, spread news around and spread things to talk about around. So we had placed around, it was in the Los Angeles Convention Center. They have sort of an auditorium.
Yeah, it's a very intimate auditorium.
I think
it's
it's
not a huge
seats,
space.
Maybe 200 or 300 people.
I was going to say just a couple hundred, yeah.
And we would have media from all over the world come.
Right.
So what we did is we placed the game stations all around that room. So as they came in, they would see this, like, oh my gosh, what is this? And they would have a plan immediately to play the game.
Right. That's Nintendo's favorite thing to do is like hear about a game, play it immediately. So the short time between when you hear about what makes a game cool and you experiencing what makes it cool is like very critical. So that was a perfect example of that.
Yeah. So we had, after that, we had Mr. Miyamoto there, and the developers were talking about the game. So sometimes we can, talk about how sometimes Nintendo can be a little bit hokey about this, like, surprise and delight stuff. But this was truly,
truly a surprise.
We actually did it, and that was a huge surprise.
And people were surprised and delighted.
And talk about a major game to just drop out of nowhere at the end of the day. Wow.
Yeah, that was a huge, I remember a huge, like, just surprise, and people were so happy and joyful from seeing that.
Yeah.
So.
That was a really strong E3 overall in my list of all
the same E3 where they had all the people that were like
the human interactives, so-called, yes,
holding up those 3DSs.
Right. I would put that of like what were the best E3s that Nintendo had.
Great trailer too.
Well, you were there. I'd put that really high.
Yeah, I feel like from a spectacle point of view. Later on, the 3DS did not do very well, but from a spectacle point of view,
problems later.
That was like. Yeah, like you really came out the gate like strong,
Right.
So, I guess I can combine my last two moments since I also had an extra one.
Okay.
Nothing like super, special or not a big story thing or whatever, but just like Zelda is a game for me that is so good at like giving you the goosebump feelings, like everyone talks about that first moment that they were playing Breath of the Wild and you like sort of come out of the Shrine of Resurrection and you see Hyrule, stretched out before you, and the music and the way the camera pans, the way the light moves, like it just, I don't know, there's something that they do very well where they just capture your heart in those moments. So that's that kind of moment that team, the development team for Zelda games, is able to do over and over again. It's just like very impressive.
Yeah.
And another one of those moments for me is like their first time just riding Epona through Hyrule Field in Ocarina of Time. It's like you're not doing anything, you're just like riding through this grassy field, but like there's a mood that this team is able to create for these games that's very unique and almost like, I don't know if there's any other games that really captures that mood, I can't really name any at all, actually. Yeah. So it's really special. I think it's hard to like describe exactly what it is, but there are so many moments like that for me in Zelda games, exploring the Great Sea for the first time. Like they do such a great job of just like really capturing you into this world, and I can't wait to see what happens in Tears of the Kingdom.
We don't know.
I think that we're gonna be in the mood like so fast. I feel like we're just gonna be like locked in, So it makes me so excited for what's coming.
Well, that's an excellent segue into our Patreon poll, which we're going to be talking about next.
Yeah.
So we asked our Patreon subscribers. It's not even a poll, it's just a question.
It's just a question, yeah.
What is the first thing you're going to do once you start playing Tears of the Kingdom?
Ooh.
And we got some great responses, some great ideas, honestly.
Okay.
So I'm excited to share this. These first two kind of go hand in hand. James says, I honestly don't know, and that excites me a whole lot. And Captain Cinnamon Bun says, wander without a goal in mind and see where my curiosity takes me.
Yeah.
That's a perfect
way. That's a great mindset to be in.
It really is.
We got to hear from Link himself.
Link the Hero
obviously.
Win says, I think it would be fun to retrace my steps from the original game to see what's changed. So I'll probably be headed to Kakariko first while exploring whatever I can on the way.
Oh,
I think that's a great idea.
What a fun way to, to kind of get yourself into a sequel is to see, like, from the original, what's different or what's the same. That's a great idea.
Yeah, we did that in our Goodbye Breath of the Wild video, walking from the Shrine of Resurrection down where you see the, quote, old man,
Yes.
and into the Great Plateau. Like, I definitely want to do that.
Yeah,
so that's a great idea.
Yeah, for sure.
Tay120N64 says, when I first played Breath of the Wild at E3 in 2016, the only thing I wanted to do was climb.
Oh.
The employees running the demo asked if I wanted any tips on what to do or where to go for the 20 minutes I had, but all I wanted to do was see if I could climb to the top of the Temple of Time. Even after 200 hours logged into the main game, my favorite thing to do is climb. Once I got the climbing gear, I only ever took it off in dire situations. So I think when I visit this new Hyrule, I'm going to survey the landscape, find an interesting structure, and climb it.
I love it. Maybe you can climb all the way up to the sky this time.
Like a Jack and the Beanstalk situation.
Yeah. Do it. Do it. See if it's possible.
Adeline Laborn says, if I know myself, I'm going to cry.
Aww.
Then, as the nerd I am, I'll check out the menus and inventory. Then, if it makes sense with the way the game is played, uncover as much of the map as possible.
Aw, that's sweet.
Switching it up on underscore says, well, once my tears have stopped flowing, I get very emotional on these releases. It will be months of build-up being released. I just want to take it all in. I like to explore every nook and cranny and play around with the new abilities before jumping off those new sky islands. Gotta get my tissues ready.
Oh, get your hanky.
Ha-ha.
Get your hanky.
Will you have tissues ready?
Probably.
Okay, good. And finally, Kyle LaBeouf says, one of my favorite moments in gaming was stepping out onto the Great Plateau for the first time in Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
The view, the score, the camera panning around Link, everything was perfect. I'm hoping that Tears of the Kingdom will give us an equally grand moment to kick off our adventure. Give me a wide-angle view of the sky with the camera panning around Link and a bombastic score. I want to soak in that moment and relive that level of excitement.
Yes, wow. I love that. I wonder where Link is going to start this time.
That's the thing. We don't know.
I don't know. I want to know. It's not going to be the Shrine of Resurrection because he's already been resurrected.
Right. Because with the last game, like that was the whole like things people were seeing for months was like, all right, we're on the Great Plateau. Here's where the game begins.
Yeah.
We knew that. We don't know. We don't know that at all.
But he has to be asleep and he has to be woken up, obviously. But by who and where and what and how, we don't know. When he opens his eyes, what would he see?
I don't know.
Want to know?
Do not leave a comment with a spoiler, please.
Oh my God! Seriously,
do not.
I won't be reading any.
Do
comments
not leave
from
a
now
comment
on.
with a spoiler. Thank you very much.
Oh my.
So I got excited reading these responses.
So great! These are great. Yes, exactly. Great ideas, and also some great responses that really match, like, kind of what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah.
You know, so can't wait.
And then finally, as we are recording this, we do not know when the reviews for the game are going to hit. You think Wednesday?
Yeah.
I think Thursday.
Oh.
But I don't know.
I think it's Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time.
It seems like people would not have gotten this game before the previews because then there would have been no reason to go to that preview event. And that was not that long ago.
The preview event was 2 weeks ago, though.
Right.
That would have been enough for... They must have gotten that game, like, immediately after the previews.
It's a long game. Anyhow, we're splitting hairs here. We need to revisit. We got to put this back out there so that we can see how we did. Our Metacritic predictions. We did this earlier in the year in our big Metacritic predictions episode.
Yes.
My Metacritic prediction for this game was a 92.
Mine was a whopping 95. Do you remember what was Breath of the Wild score again?
97.
Holy moly!
Well, I mean, it's one of the best scores ever. It's up there with like Ocarina of Time and like The Last of Us is up there.
Okay. All right, that's
Elden Ring.
I definitely. I don't know. Now I'm like,
you can revise it. Revise it now if you need to.
Really?
Well, there'll be a big asterisk next to it, but
no, I'm not going to. I'm gonna stick with it. Although I feel like I might be low now.
Low?
Could be 96 or 97. Maybe they'll both
higher?
score.
Just a perfect 100.
100.
Just a perfect 100.
Has any game ever gotten a 100?
No, because somebody would want to go, I'm the contrarian, let me tell you why this thing sucks.
Who is he or she or they?
There was somebody, this is a small tangent, when I was starting out in PR, I don't know where this person is now, there was a freelancer who that was kind of their whole shtick was, let me tell you about why the games that you think are great actually suck.
Oh.
But they were not that. They didn't have like a column where this was they would just get brought in to review games. But everything was
like a freelance person.
Yes,
that's weird.
I think they reviewed mostly PC games. But it was like, wow, this is an interesting way to do stuff.
Like being that sort of critical all the time, that must be very tiring, don't you think?
I would think so.
To like dislike.
This is my job. I hate everything that comes in my path.
My job is to be like this person to find the negativity.
Right.
I would feel like that would be exhausting.
Yeah.
So much harder to be mad than it is to be happy. You know?
It is.
Anyways.
So we do want to get into our big topic here.
Right.
Of what comes next for Nintendo after Tears of the Kingdom. Because as we said, the focus internally turns very quickly.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's like, how's the game selling? Is there anything immediately that we need to do?
Yeah.
But people start to say, like, well, what's next? How do we get ready? The rest of the year is ahead of us.
Nintendo is also notoriously a very forward-looking company.
Yeah.
And we've experienced this a lot. Like, I always felt like it was a little bit, unfortunate that you launched this huge game that would, get a great Metacritic score, that would sell a lot. And you never really got a chance to celebrate.
Right.
The celebration was like 1 hour. And then it's like the next meeting was like, okay, now we're moving on to like the 20 other things that's on your to-do list.
Yeah, and you need to prove yourself again. You're in the hole. You're in the hole again. Yeah, I don't care what you just did.
Yeah, you never get like any sort of moment to just take a deep breath and celebrate, the win, which was hard to do over and over in that cycle. So yeah, I hope that the team gets a moment to celebrate.
Like there's a meeting on Monday mornings where they go through the sales numbers for that weekend, and they'll just rattle everything off. So Tears of the Kingdom sold 1 million copies.
Advance Wars,
well done.
blah, blah,
By the
blah.
way, Advance Wars 50% under forecast. What's the deal with that?
Yeah.
It was just like boom, 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 boom.
You never get a moment to breathe. Really, it's kind of unfortunate. But there's going to be a lot of discussion, I think, during those Monday morning meetings and meetings throughout the weeks after launch about how to keep the momentum going. That is a favorite term. So the team is going to have to deal with a lot of that kind of stuff instead of taking a moment to celebrate. They'll have to think about more marketing things to do or more things to do. And then I think there's going to be DLC coming for this game, obviously. Yes. So there's going to be a lot of work there as well.
So I thought a good way to prep for this was to just write down all of the confirmed release dates for upcoming big Switch games, and mostly first-party Switch games. There's only one game that has a date.
Yeah, Pikmin.
Which I was really surprised at. So Pikmin 4, July 21st.
Yeah.
That's it! The only first-party game that has a release date. So Metroid Prime 4 remains in TBD. Just some other big games that I could think of, like third-party, like Professor Layton. There's that new game, that's TBD. Dragon Quest 12, that game doesn't even have a platform confirmed.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that game could still be years away. I could be completely off by even listing this here.
Right. Yeah.
But
it could not matter at all.
The point is that there's not a lot of games of noteworthy big games that can kind of carry the rest of the year.
Right.
Certainly, there's a lot of games still coming out, but that lineup and that schedule is wide open.
Right, and they have yet to announce, what is coming this holiday. Some of those big holiday releases are still a huge question mark.
Yeah. So this morning, Jeff Grubb got out and was sharing what he had been hearing, which was that as of now, what he's heard is that there is not a Nintendo Direct for Nintendo coming in that usual E3 time frame.
I can see that.
Which, on one hand, it's like, they're unshackled from E3. They've known for a long enough time that they weren't going to do that they didn't need to worry about putting this show together. But on the same hand, there was a lot of stuff that would happen in the summer that was in service of promoting the holiday lineup.
Exactly.
So, you have E3, and then that flows right into Comic-Con, which flows into PAX. You have all these demos that you're showing off and games that you're talking about beat after beat. There's there's a big press tour that happens in the summer in a lot of different cities where, hey,
and it kind of
mainstream
hinges
media.
on you announcing what games you have upcoming for the rest of the year.
Right. There are still super long lead print publications that Nintendo wants to be in.
Yeah.
Where, like, if you don't talk to them about this in July, you're not going to get in it.
That's right. We used to have press tours in the summertime specifically for that reason, and it was based on the fact that you announced all your holiday or the titles for the rest of the year in June, and you have playable demos from E3 in June.
Exactly.
Now that has fallen away, like, what does that mean for, excuse me, the sort of the announcement calendar, and also what does it mean for the holiday schedule?
Yeah. So I'm not saying that invalidates what Jeff Grubb is saying. I don't know. But I do think what happens with a June or that June time frame will kind of indicate, like, what the Switch has left in it.
Yeah.
Because if they don't have anything then, and they're just kind of letting all this time pass without having a clear holiday schedule, there might be less in the tank than we think.
Yeah, it starts to get a little tricky once you get past, like, August,
Yeah, because, the industry really does look like Madden coming out is the start of the holiday season. And like Madden comes out like the end of August. And then it's like, we got that big, get the heavy hitters out, get ready for the holidays.
It's like September, we call it Shocktober for a reason. September and then Shocktober is like your only 2 months of like heavy holiday time marketing and releases. And anything really November and beyond starts to feel like not really going to make a difference for you sales-wise in the holiday schedule. So
right. And you always want to have a game coming out all of those months to capitalize on the holiday opportunity.
Exactly. And the other thing that we talked about a lot that is not even anywhere on this list at all is like Nintendo is still sort of missing that like big mainstream holiday game. That's like
this is your Mario game?
Mario the movie, the game. Where are you? Because they do need something for like the family and for like the little boy to like unbox on Christmas morning to play with his, his like family and stuff like that. Like Nintendo, they want that like mass appeal, that like sort of expanded audience. Tears of the Kingdom is not going to be that for them. It's going to be more like, the core gamers that we used to call it, and like the existing Switch audience. But in terms of like expanding it for the holidays, they don't have anything right now on this list. It doesn't seem like it's there.
Well, to that point, those are games, like if it is a truly like expanded audience, more casual game, you can announce and put that out pretty quick.
You can, but you also don't want to wait too long because you do have like your existing like people that are paying attention that you want to capture too, But if that, again, the counterpoint to that is, if that is your big thing for the holidays, you would not want that anchoring a Nintendo Direct. This big casual game. No. Yeah. Unless it's a Mario game that everybody can.
Big Brain Academy.
Everybody can enjoy a Mario game.
Yes.
Mario.
You're really holding on tight to the Mario game.
Mario game. Where are you? It would be such a huge miss. Like, can they really do this? Where they have a year of amazing Mario expanded audience stuff, like a movie and a theme park, and not have a game? Are you kidding me? That's dumb.
We also have in September Nintendo Live. We have some updates in our news section where we'll talk about that. But that is something where you're gonna have a lot of fans there. Like, yes, you can do things around the games that are already out. They've talked about having tournaments for games that are already out, but it would be nice to have something fresh.
They want
to get people excited.
I don't think it's going to be at Nintendo Live at all. I kind of feel like what they're going to do is some kind of like drip feed
Twitter drops
over the summer like they did last year.
I think that makes sense.
Could potentially have an indie showcase in the summer.
Sure.
And sort of have like a non-direct that way, but have some sort of announcement for smaller games.
Yeah.
It could even be a third-party showcase, but nothing first-party in terms of a direct. They'll do Nintendo Live, which will be a fan like photo op-y, play the existing games. Here's another Splatoon tournament kind of thing, and then maybe not that same time because they have Nintendo Live the 1st through the 4th. They might do a direct like in September, but not at the same time. Like that week of the 10th.
Before or later?
Later. Week of the 10th.
Okay.
Whatever week is after Nintendo Live. That's what I think.
Okay.
Put that in the potentially being right
Yeah.
box there. I don't know. But that's my feeling.
Yeah. I mean, either way, again, if there's not the June Direct, it does feel like we're in the, how can we buy time on the schedule?
Oh,
How
yeah.
can we still keep people playing? So,
Absolutely. It's going to be like the sustain interest.
right.
Which is hard to do and annoying. So get ready for that. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, but it also, I mean, they may be well positioned for this because they may have just games that are done that are just sitting and ready for a rainy
HD?
day like this, like
Wind Waker
a
HD?
Wind Waker HD, for example. I mean, that's a big enough game that's like, yeah, we could even put that out, in like December or something if we needed something for the holidays. I don't know. Who knows?
Sure. Clear that, there's a lot of unanswered questions that I'm sure they're thinking about.
I do also go back to, remember when Nintendo pulled out of E3, one of the talking points, and I was skeptical of this at the time, was like they didn't have the lineup to support a proper E3 booth.
Yeah.
Might
have been the case.
Maybe there's more to that than we thought.
Yeah, you are getting to the end of the Switch life cycle, for sure. Like, no matter how you slice it, we're getting close to the end. They probably have, obviously, this whole year.
Yeah.
But we're getting to the point where people are probably thinking, like, wow, this next big thing.
Switch 2 announcement when?
On a Link t-shirt.
Stop beating around the bush.
It's going to be on Link's t-shirt in Tears of the Kingdom, right?
Do you think we see that this year, though?
Nah.
I still think that's an early next year sort of thing. They squeeze what they can out of it for this year.
They're going to want to do it before March, the end of March next year, because it's the fiscal year end. And if they're going to make a splash with their shareholders and have some sort of sake celebration, it's going to be announced then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
let's last time the Switch was announced in October and announced in March. That's 5 months. So that means the soonest you have this thing out is May. If we have a dry schedule starting now, that's kind of a long time to go with like little drips and drops.
Third party, where you at? Where you at, third party? This is where our third party team is working real hard.
More Splatoon tournament, more Splatfests.
The 3P team working really hard.
Weekly Splatfests.
We still have the Splatoon DLC coming in July.
That's a thing. Does it have a confirmed date?
I thought it was July.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Summer.
It was not on the list
Summer.
that I was looking at.
Because you just don't care.
I'm sure there's something I
You
missed.
don't care.
No, I want to play the single player.
The
DLC
single player looks good.
I will play
it
that.
looks good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might have some stuff like that, some little things. Ooh.
Interesting times.
It's interesting.
Here.
I mean, we talked about this.
This is why we said 2 weeks ago that was the peak. The peak is happening, but things can drop off quickly.
Right, and the thing is like, the hardest time is right now, is the transition time. Like, you have this big game coming out that will sustain people for 3 to 6 months-ish. This game might have a long tail, which is great for Nintendo. But at some point, people are going to want other games to play, right?
Yeah.
And that transition between Switch and Switch 2 or whatever, it's rocky and challenging. And if you don't have the right sort of team and plan in place to like really be able to smoothly transition, it can be really... It can be jarring and really hard for everyone, for people internally, obviously, but also for us who are consumers and fans. We might be feeling some of that transition, and it could feel a little rough,
I keep going back to something that was said in that Atari 50 game/documentary that I loved and I recommend, which was, Atari had a great system in the 2600, but it all fell apart after that. And in the interviews, they were like, yeah.
What happened?
We were not prepared for a console transition. We really didn't know what to do. And,
yes.
and like, it kind of destroyed our company.
Yeah.
And it really has not gotten any easier.
No, we've been
since
through
then.
so many console transitions.
They're all painful and hard.
Even when they're good, they're painful and hard.
Right.
Even when we went from Wii U to Switch, it was painful and hard.
Yeah, so...
And that was a good thing. We were happy about that. We wanted to do it.
Right.
Everyone wanted to do it. We were like, finally, we're like, yes, we have a console that is actually good. But it doesn't make it any harder. I'm sorry, easier.
Yeah.
So, yeah, regardless, we're going to be in for that, feeling that transition, So we should all just be prepared. And that's what we were saying like months ago. Like, let's not be so quick to like wanting a Switch 2 because that period is going to be tough for all of us. And we should just really enjoy the peak of Nintendo right now. It literally is happening right now. So we really should. They can't celebrate because they're working on the next thing. We get to celebrate.
Not allowed.
They're not allowed. They're working on the next the DLC campaign and panicking over sales numbers.
Why did you sell 10 million and not 20 million?
This is where they move the forecast.
You loser?
They love moving the forecast. It's like,
that.
you beat the forecast? Well, that was actually not the real forecast. This is the real forecast, and you actually didn't beat it, so you failed.
Yeah.
I
just changed it 5 minutes ago. You failed.
You suck. We laugh, but it's a little painful, really.
That was the forecast. This is the goal, and you missed it.
And then it's
what's the difference?
And then you get to the goal like a week later. You're like, oh, I got to the goal. Oh, you got to the goal, but you didn't reach the stretch goal. The stretch goal for Smash moved like 7 times.
Yeah.
I was like, can we please? Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
Oh my gosh.
But let's collectively though, as fans and as
Yeah, we don't need to worry about this.
We don't need to worry about it.
Let's enjoy the moment right now.
Yes,
enjoy this moment.
The high of playing this wonderful new game and us playing it all together. It's going to be so much fun. Can't wait to just see like what everyone gets up to in Tears of the Kingdom, and it's going to be so great. Let's enjoy the Switch, wherever life it has left. Let's enjoy it all together. I think that's the way to look at it.
Let's talk about some games we're playing. We got some new stuff. We got some old stuff. You got some super old stuff. We got your final Resident Evil 4 updates, but honestly, who cares? I put that at the very end.
Oh.
Keep it quick. Let's start with something fresh. Capcom sent me some codes for the Mega Man.
Oh.
It's a mouthful. Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection.
Oh yeah, you're a huge Mega Man fan. This is perfect for you.
Well, I think I should clarify. I'm a mega fan of some Mega Man games. It's not a comprehensive.
That's true.
I'm not
You're
a comprehensive
really like
fan.
a classic Mega Man.
Even that, I fell off pretty fast after Mega Man 5. Because
Okay.
it was this is too much of the same thing.
Mega Man 2
and
is
these
your
are not
favorite.
2 and 3 are my favorites.
Yeah, 2 and 3. 3 you talk about and play.
Yeah.
A lot.
Mega Man X, I really like. After that, it started to get a little dicey. So, kind of short burst of Mega Man love.
Okay.
But I did play Mega Man Battle Network on the Game Boy Advance when it first. I can't remember if it was the first or the second one. I think it was the first one. And they made 6 of these games. So this was
a lot more than I thought.
This was kind of the same thing where it was like, oh, this is fun, this is new, this is cool, and then they just kept putting them out yearly. I was like, this is too much. So I fell off on it pretty hard, but it has been fun to go back to this game in particular. And it's bringing back a lot more memories than I thought I had for it.
Oh, okay.
And I really like it. So this game...
it's on Switch, right?
This is on Switch, yes. Okay. I actually don't know what other platforms it's on. I imagine it's on some other platforms. But this is a very different, if you don't know what the series is, this is a very different from the traditional side-scrolling Mega Man. This was during, they were clearly trying to get something in the ilk of Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that RPG kind of vibe.
This is more of an RPG. You're not playing as Mega Man. You play as this guy named Lan, who has a little, cyber friend named Mega Man, who he jacks into the internet. So this game came out in 2000.
It's like a LAN cable? Is that the joke?
Yeah, so this game came out in 2001, 2002. So it's that very Y2K perspective on the internet.
Oh, that's so weird.
Which is very different from
fascinating,
how we
isn't it?
look at things now. There's a lot of jacking in and there are some things about the internet that they did accurately predict. But there are some things that are just hilarious. In one of the stages, the background is just these floating letter E's. So now everything has an I in front of it. Back then it was E.
That's right.
E-machine, E-learning.
Yes, it was like a lowercase E, and then an uppercase everything else.
Exactly.
Just like how now the I is a lowercase I.
Right. So I was wow,
Y2K,
this is such a product of the time and how we look at the internet.
That era is always fast. We did the Gizmondo stuff, a little tangent. But it's that's weird.
Yes.
This is that same kind of weird.
Right.
Where it's this really captures what we as humans thought the what our future was going to look like. And some of it was like, maybe yes. And some of it was just like totally off, you know?
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
So you play as Lan in the RPG parts. You're running around town. He's like a 10-year-old kid. He goes to school. He hangs out at home with his mom.
Cute.
Like typical like Pokemon town stuff.
Sure.
And then you go into these dungeons, which are in, quote, cyberspace, the information superhighway where you're playing as Mega Man. And you can get into random battles. And the battle system is really good in this game. So there's a grid. And it's kind of like broken into two sides. So you're on one side, the enemies are on one side, and it's like 3x3 grid. And you can move around freely in that grid.
Okay.
So it's not like, you know, another RPG where you're just standing still and you're just like choosing attack.
It's kind of interesting because it makes it feel like a bit more dynamic.
So it is a bit more like dynamic to it. And you, every turn, you get given these, they're called chips, but they're basically the moves that you have. So you get 5 chips every turn.
Okay.
And you can choose which of those to do. And then, you know, sometimes they're like different kinds of shots you can do. Some of them alter the field. Like you can break one of the squares on the enemy's side.
That's interesting.
You can get health back. And there's different ways that you can group those chips together that will allow you to choose I might be able to do like 3 chips in one turn if I get a good deal on those versus only being able to do 1.
Okay.
So there is a deck building part of assembling your chips in a really fun way. And there's a lot of those chips. And I don't know any other games that have a battle system like this, and it holds up really well. So I like this a lot. The dungeons, there's a lot of random encounters.
Oh.
That's
like
this collection though does have
turn off
something where you can't turn those off, but you can turn on like a superpower mode where just your normal shot, which you can do at any time.
One shot kill.
Basically, on all those little fodder enemies.
Okay.
So I've been doing a lot of that to get through these dungeons because it's like it can be kind of a slog. Also, some of those dungeons can be kind of hard to tell like where you're supposed to go. So it can be a little annoying if you're just getting stopped for random fights all the time. So I've just had that on from time to time, and then, you know, for the bosses or the big fights, I turn it off and do it the normal way. But it's just got a really fun vibe to it. Like this series was, I think, a lot bigger than some people may realize. Like it was selling millions of copies. And I've seen a lot of people saying like, oh, this is like peak nostalgia for me from when I was 10 years old. Like it's a real good like 10-year-old game.
Yeah.
It's a super good 10-year-old game.
It's just what people probably feel about Pokemon, you know?
Totally.
It's like it hits that for you because you were like that age when you played it and you were like, you felt like you were that character.
Right. There's some other really nice, you know, just quality of life stuff that they've added into these. Again, there's 6 games. They're broken into 2 different packs, so you can buy 1 through 3 or 3 through 6, or you can buy a bundle. I got the code, so I didn't have to worry about that. I don't think I'm playing all 6 of these, but I've really enjoyed playing through it. And it's a series that I've been watching a few YouTube videos on it just to get better informed about what happened after those first couple, because again, I dropped off really hard. I'd love for them to bring this series back.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
They should. It sounds like really unique, too. Like there's something that's, you know, really different about it than other RPGs, and so it would be great. And these characters are so memorable.
Let's get something going with Mega Man. Come on.
What are they doing with Mega Man besides these legacy things? They really should update it. It's a great character.
I have also been playing a new game called Lunark.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you to Way Forward for sending over a code for this.
Very nice.
So this is in a genre that I had never heard of, called a cinematic platformer. Have you ever heard of that?
No. Seems to be two genres that are at odds with each other.
I had to read up a little bit on this because they were like, "Oh, this is a new cinematic platformer." I'm like,
"What's an old cinematic platformer?"
I've never heard of that. So what that means, though, is it's in this sort of original Prince of Persia mold.
Oh, I love that.
Not the new Prince of Persia, where you're like rewinding time and stuff, where it's like 2D, you're making these long jumps, you're falling into spikes, that kind of stuff. You're getting little sword battles.
I like that.
That one.
I like that
It's a great game.
I really like that a lot.
So
I really want them to remake Prince.
I still don't know how that came the name for this genre, but basically what it means is it's a very like deliberate platformer where you have to put a bit more thought into your actions because there's like a lot of like animations baked into everything that you're doing. So like when you're jumping, you might need to press jump like a tiny bit earlier than you would in like a Mario game. Because there's like a build up and it jumps.
Okay. So maybe the actions feel more like realistic? to like how a person would actually jump.
Maybe.
Versus Mario,
Yeah.
that's like very cartoony and unrealistic.
I didn't dislike it. It just took me like 10 minutes to wrap my head around how I needed to approach the action.
Okay.
Which was totally fine once I got the hang of it. And this is sort of a sci-fi game. You go into space, and there's platforming, there's puzzles to solve, you have some light combat. I'm admittedly still pretty early into this, but it seems really cool. And
wow.
Again, there's not a lot of games that play like this. I don't know if it's for everybody. I don't know if it would click for everybody. Maybe look at a YouTube video just to see.
It sounds like it'd be a little bit hard.
I think you'd get a feel for it, but it's definitely the sort of more deliberate movement and motion into it. So that's been cool too, though. All right, into the old stuff. I finished Final Fantasy IV.
Finally.
Excellent.
Not finally, because it actually only took you like 12 hours.
I said something wrong last episode. I said that at that time I was at 12 hours. I actually ended up beating this game in under 12 hours.
Which is amazing.
Which is crazy. I think, like, normally beating this game under 20 hours would be tough. And you can go a lot further than that depending on how much you want to grind or side stuff. I did a lot of side stuff, honestly, in this. And again, this is a game I've played a million times, so I know kind of exactly what to do. But beating it in under 12 hours was...
That's incredible.
Crazy. So,
I wish more games would give you, like more remasters of JRPGs or whatever would give you that option.
Right.
Because it would make, like, just replaying it or re-experiencing it so much easier for me, you know? Because I just don't have 500 hours.
So the things that I cut out, I mean, are things that are great to cut out if you don't like them. So grinding, I would periodically turn on that experience booster and just get more experience that way instead of just running around in a circle and grinding. Okay, that's a great way to save time. And then into dungeons, again, random encounters can be annoying depending on the dungeon you're doing. I would just sometimes turn those off. But it wasn't a big deal because I was properly leveled. So I was still getting through it. So if you want to be a purist, like you can keep all that stuff on. But for me, to play this game a million times, love playing it this way. This game still holds up. This game is a perfect 10 in my book.
This is a perfect 10.
I finished my 3-hour documentary on this game.
Wow.
This game.
And?
So there was something in that blew my mind.
Tell me.
The guy doing this documentary pointed out this movie from the late 80s that was a bomb pretty much everywhere, but was released in Japan and was kind of a cult classic in Japan called Baron Munchausen.
Oh.
And he just pointed out so many different things that could have very clearly been an inspiration for Final Fantasy IV.
Are you going to watch Baron Munchausen?
And I kind of want to. And the thing that totally blew my mind, after he had like 5 or 6 things, I was like, okay, you're kind of convincing me here. He had a side-by-side. Uma Thurman is in this movie, of a still of Uma Thurman from the movie and the portrait of Rosa in the character screen that were like almost the same.
Identical?
Whoa.
We should watch this.
Baron Munchausen.
We're watching Baron Munchausen on this channel. Watch along. I love it.
I've never heard of Baron Munchausen.
I've never heard of it, but that sounds amazing.
But the movie looks kind of cool,
It looks cool. It sounds cool.
Right. So I just had the best time playing this game again. With Zelda coming out, I'm not going to have time to play any of these others, but there's a few I'm going to save for when I have a spare couple hours here and there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm having a great time with the Pixel remaster.
Yay! I'm so glad for you that you beat Final Fantasy IV.
Yes.
Your favorite game one of your favorite games of all time.
True.
Before Tears of the Kingdom came.
All right, you have 30 seconds to update us on Resident Evil 4. No more.
I'll beat it. That's it.
Great, let's move on.
No, come on now. I really was just like so like floored by how good this game was. And yeah, I think the game does a really great job of like this is another like sort of Resident Evil thing that is done really well that other games, you know, just struggle to replicate, where you have the situation where you feel so hopeless and then you're like, there's no way I can do this. Like, I can't beat this mob of zombies. Like, there's just no way. And then the game gives you something where you can totally do it, obviously, and then you feel like triumphant and heroic and powerful. And I think this game, out of, you know, a lot of the Resident Evil games I've played before, does that feeling and does that sort of, gives you that reward the best. And especially, you know, in the latter sort of part of this game when you're really getting close to the end and doing a lot of those big boss fights or big, sort of big story moments where you need to get from A to B and there's this mob of horrible enemies in your way. Like, they really do a great job of giving you that feeling. Like, there are so many moments where you're like, oh, I can't, this is going to be so hard. And then you're like, no, I get a rocket launcher. It's going to be awesome. And it feels so good. But yes, I loved it. It was so good. It was so much fun. There were so many moments where I'm like, this is not in the original, but it definitely was, and I just forgot about it.
It was. That's the thing.
That happened to you, too.
That's happened to me a lot, yeah.
I also saw this hilarious tweet this morning where there was like a picture from the coronation where he was holding like all of those royal scepters and stuff like that. And someone was like, this is worth 30 pesetas. I was like, oh my God. I died laughing. Why are there those like weird treasures around this world?
The crown jewels.
The crown jewels. You're like embedding the gems in them and stuff. It's so random.
I don't know.
But anyways.
You mean in the game?
Yeah.
I thought you meant in real life.
And in real life, there's crown jewels. But in the game, you're just picking them out of chests and selling them for bullets and stuff, which is great. But I was laughing so hard. I was like, yeah, that's totally a Resident Evil thing. Oh, boy. Good stuff.
That's what we've been playing. Next week, we got a big, probably nothing but Tears of the Kingdom what we've been playing. Which is great. Makes sense.
Yes.
Let's keep talking about Tears of the Kingdom in the news. The leaks.
Ooh, the leaks.
We will. To be clear, we are not talking about in specific spoilers.
I don't know.
Leaked material.
Yeah, I've not read a single.
You've been staying away from it.
I don't want any.
I've not. I've been looking.
You have?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's fine. I won't talk about it. So
you saw some stuff?
You can feel very safe that we will not spoil this here at all.
I can't believe that you looked at them.
Why?
Oh my God! I oh, dear me!
You bet I looked. So where to begin with this? So there was a lot of people upset at Kotaku.
Yes.
For they had a big article sort of summarizing what was in the game based on the leaks that were out there. Mm-hmm. That got people talking.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Well, we talked about this a little bit in our bonus Q&A last week for our beautiful Patreon community. But yeah, Kotaku is an outlet that has done this in the past. You know, they've done sort of these sort of gray area type stories where they talk about controversial things, or it could be perceived that they're just like completely burning bridges with different publishers and things like that. You know, we certainly, when we were working at Nintendo and doing a lot of PR, we certainly had a bit of a rocky relationship with Kotaku where they were taken off of media review lists and things like that because of some of the articles they were publishing with some of the stuff that, you know, I think people are finding to be controversial. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of not surprised that this came from Kotaku because they are an outlet that kind of does this kind of stuff. So
it is very on brand for them.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah.
They are just not interested in following the written or unwritten rules of covering games.
And it kind of is unwritten, to be fair. Like, I would say that a lot of the rules are in that gray area, and they're just like on the side of like, we'll just do what we want kind of thing, which that's their prerogative.
I've been saying the ultimate heel move by them would be to say, we have the exclusive review based on a leaked version of the game. And that would be something.
That people will snap some pencils.
That would be something.
They're causing the PR team some aneurysms there. I don't know.
I mean, on its face, like the leaks are big news. I think as long as you have adequate warning about, like, we actually have like information on what leaked, like, I guess it's fine. There was some of the tone stuff though where like it was being positioned as like, oh, we're getting revenge because
the revenge thing was a little bit
Nintendo
petty.
Didn't invite us, or Nintendo didn't send us this game. Like, I didn't like that part of it.
Right. I think that's a little petty. If you're gonna be, again, those are all unwritten rules too. Like, you can be petty if you want. If that is what you want to do, that's fine. But I think in the long run, that just feels like it's unprofessional.
Right.
You know, but.
So, I don't know about you, and I actually have no way to actually quantify what is or isn't happening here, but my feeling is like Nintendo was not able to get this under control, this leak situation.
No.
Because you still hear about people
cannot.
who are like, oh, I'm just playing this game, or yeah, I have this game, no big deal. It's like, it's still out there, no matter what they're doing. It still cannot be
I don't know if there's
contained.
anything you can do.
I don't either.
And in the world that we live in now,
I mean,
where
maybe in the past it was just it happened late enough that the game came out and people moved on.
But I think there are more and more people with the capabilities of being able to leak a game
Right.
than ever before. Like, people are more savvy about how to do that than ever before. And I think it's that number, that group, is just going to keep getting bigger.
So I had a tweet last week that some people found interesting that our friend OJ Player Essence made a whole video out of,
Oh my.
which was, I just had a moment where I thought, oh, remember the Metroid Prime trilogy? That was a game that came out of nowhere, was a complete surprise, released digital first,
And then they did the
physical came a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
Is that the way Nintendo is going to launch certain games where they are worried about these sorts of leaks or these sorts of information control? Obviously, not everything needs to do this, but certain things. Would they ever do this?
They're so traditional, in their way of working, in their way of releasing. And I think they see huge value in the physical, especially with the fans that are buying Nintendo games physical. That's going to be a tough conversation to convince somebody to do it, I think.
Yes, I think this is a bad idea. I think this would be terrible for business. I think this would hurt the sales of these games.
It would.
And it would burn some bridges with retailers.
It would.
But I think there are certain people at Nintendo who are advocating for this.
Yeah,
Because
but I think
to them,
on
this-
the other side, there's certain people advocating against
Because
it.
to them, this is life or death.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like if they ever did something like this, we would know they're full on into just arrogant Nintendo. And
Anybody will buy anything.
And I would
from
start
us.
to get really concerned about like, what is the Switch
Let's
2?
hope that
What are they doing with the Switch 2?
all digital.
Right, based
all
on
digital?
this, it just comes under with a
All digital,
lock and key.
but we're not going to have a backwards compatibility,
Yeah.
so you have to rebuy all your stuff again. All
right.
digital, though.
I would start to get really worried if they did this.
I hope they don't. I hope they can see beyond, leaks as this big headline and as a thing that's going to be a thorn in their side. The other thing that I think about a lot is like, if they went down this really extreme route of going all digital and then physical later or something like that as a way to stem the leaks, I feel like it's only a matter of time before people are able to leak the digital versions. I
Yeah.
just don't think that you can fully say, like, I'm going to get this 100% under control forever by doing these, like, crazy things,
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's just not going to happen.
But I just think
people are going to leak it.
we know what happens. Like, there has to be some response to this.
Yeah.
Something must be done
Yeah, there is
for future games.
There's a lot of questions.
So
From
what
the
are you
Japan
doing
team.
different? What process are you changing?
Yeah,
You can't just do nothing.
I
So
know.
what do they do?
I don't know.
What do you do? That's something they could do.
This is going to be a cycle for them forever then. Because you're going to just live in a world where things going to get leaked.
Right.
And you're going to panic about it and ask about what is going to be done. And the answer is always going to be, well, these things, but that's really not addressing the problem because the problem can't be solved. So if you're going to live and die on the stuff and not focus on what you can control, what is in your, my favorite phrase.
Let's devil's
circle of
advocate.
control.
Let's devil's advocate this idea.
Yeah.
So if you did this, what are the upsides? You move people over to digital faster,
Sure.
which has a higher profit margin for you.
Okay.
At least in the short term, again, like you were saying, you are cutting down on these leaks.
You're cutting it down.
It will cut it down.
Sure.
I just came up with 3 reasons of why this is a
That's gonna be that
a quote good thing to
person's-
do. Again, I think this is a terrible
Those
one.
people's argument is going to be that.
I'm just going through the thought process.
And
of
yeah,
how this
you know
argument
what?
gets played
It
out.
does depend on what Switch 2 is going to do.
Yeah.
Like, what if it is like I have a PS5 that's digital only.
Right.
What if there's a digital only Switch 2? And then they're like, well, we have a console that's going to be digital only. So guess what? To cut down on these leaks, to support this console,
Right.
to move people to digital, we're going to do this.
Let me give you another devil's advocate. Well, the retailers, the poor retailers. Well, the retailers can sell a POS card, point of sale card, for the same game, so that the retailers can still make their money. I just came up with 4 great points.
They used to say that was an argument for retailers, the eShop cards or whatever was like that Band-Aid for retailers for a long time. Because when we opened the eShop, our entire retail team was like, hello, what about us? We have to have these meetings with these people. Like, what are we going to do? And that was like their like brush off Band-Aid situation, which I'm sure made nobody happy, but whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's such
Point 5.
Oh.
Hey, retailers. You're mad about this, but guess what? We have the Switch 2 coming at some point in the future.
And you're
not going to make a lot of noise about this, are you?
Oh, boy.
Are you? You're going to keep your mouth shut about this, aren't you? You're just going to take it.
Yeah, that's a very fair
I just came
argument.
up with 5 ridiculous points.
I mean, that could be happening right now as we speak.
Oh my God.
Don't give them any ideas. You know what they do? They listen to our podcast and they do it.
I'm just a devil's
Don't
advocate.
do it. You're giving them bad ideas.
Gotta hear both sides.
Gotta hear both sides.
Let's move on. Nintendo Live details. I love it when news come out on Monday morning.
Woo,
We can get it into this podcast.
Yes.
So here's what we got with this new information. The event is happening September 1st through 4th, as we predicted.
Yes.
Which is over, what month is it? Labor Day?
Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day weekend. In Seattle, the Seattle Convention Center. It is happening in conjunction with PAX.
They had a joint press release.
That was a wrinkle that I should have seen coming in hindsight. And you should as well.
Why me? Why me? Why are you pointing at me?
You. I'm blameless.
We did talk about what would happen with PAX.
Right.
But I guess the solution is in conjunction with PAX.
Right. They are having, no surprise, Mario Kart 8 and Splatoon tournaments there.
Of course.
They're having qualifiers for the tournaments at Nintendo Live, which will start at the end of May. To get tickets,
This is what I was talking about. There's a lottery system.
They're using a lottery system. The registration is May 31st through June 22nd, so there's a big window of time. Tickets are free. Tickets are only good for 1 day. And there is a way to register like as a group. So I think you and I are going to have to register as a family.
Oh, cute.
To go to Nintendo.
Yay! We're not going to get in.
People want to go to group or are in families too, Nintendo.
Oh, yeah. What if you had a group of friends? That's mean.
Well, now you're a family.
Oh.
And they also had
adopt
a big thing in their FAQ.
No announcements
will be made.
Don't expect nothing.
So this is pretty much everything that we need for this until we get a little bit closer.
Yeah,
and
now
they
you
want
can
to share.
make your plans and book your travel
Right.
as needed and all that good stuff.
I guess the big question I still have is if I register, when am I going to hear if I got in or not, if I won this lottery?
Right.
Because, again, if I'm out of town, I still need time to book a flight or a hotel during PAX.
I guess what they are banking on is that you're going to PAX anyway.
Then let's give up with this song and dance of like, oh, we want grandma to come. The people who go to this are the people who go to PAX.
But if you register as a family, grandma can come.
Are you grandma now?
I can be grandma.
You're going to be grandma.
I'll be grandma, you be Link. I'll be in my chair with a soup. I'm pretty much a grandma anyway, honestly. But yeah, I feel like that's what, it's very confusing because it doesn't need to be this confusing. But it's only this confusing because the Japan team did it like this, and the U.S. team has to do what the Japan team says.
Yeah, they don't really have a leg to stand on to say, let's do it a different way.
No, because they've never done this.
No, we've done this to great success. You're going to do it this way.
Yeah, they're very good at telling you what to do. So, 100% they are calling the shots here. 100%.
So we're going to go to PAX West. We're
We'll register.
We're going to register for this. I'll say though, like if we end up not being able to get in, it's not going to feel like the end of the world. We've been to the Nintendo one, which in all honesty will probably be better than this one.
It was fun. Yeah.
I don't expect a lot of things that you haven't seen before to be here.
It's going to
be a fun thing to go to.
It'll be fun. There's going to be like photo ops. You'll have your little stage show with some gameplay or some competition.
But again, we have no problem filling a weekend at PAX. So
yeah, PAX is already like a full thing.
Fine, we'll just spend more time there. So
yeah, maybe we should register with Reggie. The three of us can be a family.
Oh, it's a family. Oh, there
should
we go.
Should we ask him?
Yes. That is the idea.
I think that is the good idea. And if we don't get in, we can just hang out with Reggie. Whatever.
somebody's furiously going through the thing.
Checking, they're like, piece of my. Oh, we're really not trying to be annoying. It's just kind of fun. All right.
May 31st. That's coming up in like a couple weeks.
Oh man, I'm gonna cry now. Okay, I'm gonna call Reggie after this. See if he wants to. It's in his backyard.
It is.
If he can go for free, why not? Right?
We're crouch surfing, Reggie.
Woohoo! That's gonna be fun, actually. Okay, let's do that. Plans are being made, but yeah, we're gonna go to PAX anyway, so we'll be in Seattle. So yeah.
We have some non-Nintendo news. So last week there was this incredible interview with Phil Spencer on Kind of Funny. We did a whole video on this reacting to this, so you should watch that interview if you have not. It's been about a week now.
Right.
But it's got people wondering what's up with Xbox and if they're ever going to fix some of the problems they've been having for a while now. And, Phil Spencer, as he usually is, was just extremely honest and open and candid about it. And, he fell on the sword again about this. But, these are not all problems of his making. Just wonder, at what point does he get sick of this?
I'd be sick of it already. But kudos to him for being a executive that's not scared to do these kinds of interviews. Like we were talking about, how, in what universe does, a Nintendo exec do this? Never. They would cancel the interview because it's no, we're not going to get ourselves into a situation where we're going to.
Or they would say we can't talk about.
We can't talk about this. They'd be very. It's and then you'll get
we need to talk about Nintendo Live.
You'll get some canned PR response about it, which will be just whatever.
It's a non-answer.
It's a non-answer. Yeah. But Phil does not shy away from these kinds of things, and I have some respect, a lot of respect for for him doing it. And also the Kind of Funny team did not shy away from asking the tough questions, which also a lot of respect to them, So it's great to see the honesty on both sides. Really interesting interview. It's an interesting time for Xbox, and I do wonder, they need a win. They need one win to just get them out of the slump.
So the thing that sparked all this, so the Redfall reviews were very bad. It's at a 59 Metacritic. Ouch.
And that was one of their big games this year too.
I will say, this was my prediction for Xbox. They had a very rocky first half of the year, and then it starts to turn around.
It's gonna happen. But did we predict the Metacritic for Redfall in our video?
I don't remember.
Okay, maybe I had to look.
Do not remember, but nobody expected that.
They didn't even expect
This is what we were predicting for the Harry Potter game, by the way.
Oh, we took an L on that. It's okay.
We missed that completely. So, they've got their game showcase coming out in June. Lots riding on that.
Yeah. Starfield Direct.
I mean,
that game. The other thing about that is I just feel the pressure for that poor team on Starfield. It's everything is riding on this now because Redfall is just.
You don't want to say one game makes or breaks a whole platform, but it's starting to feel that way.
Well, they're going to rely on it so heavily now, so it's just going to be tough. But hopefully they will announce some stuff in June that is games that we haven't heard about for a while that can help take some of the pressure off Redfall. Off Starfield as well. But I feel it. I feel it for Xbox. I'm rooting for them. I want them to be okay and to come back. So yeah.
Yeah, for the first year or so after the PS5 and the Xbox came out, remember they came out right around the same time, it seemed like they were sort of neck and neck with sales.
Totally neck and neck, yeah.
But now they're very clearly in third place.
Yeah, and PS5 is actually skyrocketing a bit.
It's going great,
It's going really well for them. And they still have a huge, great game coming, which is Spider-Man, so...
Yeah, Xbox is just in a hole, though, so... Tough for them. This last news thing actually has nothing to do with games, but it seems like it could have some impact eventually on games. We want to talk about it, and I don't know if people know this, but in Hollywood, the Writers Guild of America is on strike. And once you start to dig into the reasons and kind of the points that are sticking with them and sort of the leadership of the studios, you wonder this could happen in games maybe someday. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's typical stuff about fair pay, and it seems like one of the sticking points is the studios kind of want to push writing out of being a long-term career into more of the gig economy.
Yeah, where you're
freelance just taking projects or you're freelancing.
Yeah.
But there was one really interesting point, and you and I have been just kind of proactively interested in this and following it.
I think so.
Where as it was coming up time to negotiate their contract, they were saying like, hey, we want to have these assurances that artificial intelligence is not going to be used in a way that sort of puts us out of a job or starts to replace us. And they just proactively brought that up, and the studios were like, absolutely we absolutely
not.
reject all of these points.
Some of the some of the writers have shared the actual contract,
Right.
and the wording in there is so insulting to the writer. It's like, we will not discuss this with you. We will absolutely have artificial intelligence as part of our...
Right. So what that shows is that, yes, they were thinking about this.
And they've totally discounted your expertise as a writer.
Right.
It's like crazy.
I mean, we should say the whole like streaming model right now is kind of in shambles.
It's absolutely.
Where
it's like a race to last
all
place,
of these services are just bleeding money. So I can see why they're trying to like find ways to make things up. But
I don't know.
I mean, this feels like a real
really
like
bad
idea. But you do think like, gosh, like if this, whatever happens with this could become a precedent in games in the future.
Absolutely.
Where it's like, oh, well, especially since Hollywood is always looked at as like the beacon, the model for games. It's like, oh, well, Hollywood's now just using AI to write its script, so we're going to do this too.
Yeah.
Which would be a tough move and a bad move. We did hear at GDC this tool that Ubisoft has called the Ghostwriter. And everybody seemed to think...
this one is where I was like, this is the right implementation of this technology.
Yeah, everybody thought this was a good implementation. People were scared when they first heard about it, but it's only for writing these little one-liners that NPCs do.
Right.
It's very thoroughly checked and rewritten by an actual writer, an actual person. And it is not touching like the main like script dialogue characters of the game.
The most important thing that was something that stood out to me about this tool is that the premise of it is that because you're using this technology to do some of the more, mundane or repetitive work, you free up time for your talented writers to actually focus on bigger things, to make your game experience, your narrative experience better. I think if that is sort of the guardrails that we set for something like this kind of technology, like, then we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
But it seems like on the Hollywood side, it's all about like cost cutting, disrespect for, human talent and, like the work that a writer does. And it's all based on saving money.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it kind of falls apart for me in terms of value. And it just doesn't make sense to do that.
So basically everything in Hollywood has just stopped. Like there were these stories of like, oh, the new Stranger Things season has just stopped.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody to write it.
Yeah.
And they say like...
Marvel movies have stopped.
Yeah.
The most hilarious thing, if we're looking at a silver lining in this not so great story, is that they have like picket lines, right, of the people.
Oh, the signs are funny. Yeah.
The signs are written so well because they're writers.
Yeah.
I love the one that said like, if you don't, we're gonna stay on strike until you meet our demands, or else we're going to spoil Succession. And I died. It was hilarious. It was so good. It's so funny.
The one thing to point out, though, is so there is a union for writers in Hollywood. There's no such union in games.
No,
so that is an interesting distinction. I'm curious for more people in games writing to share their thoughts on this, because I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah.
I've seen some stuff, but I feel like it just feels like this is going to have a ripple effect into games.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah.
So worth to look into if you're interested in that. Let's get into questions from our Patreon community. We get every single question from our Patreon subscribers. They're all Zelda themed this week.
Oh, great.
And the first is from Cerulean Dragon. Hey, Kit and Krysta had a fun question as we head into Zelda Week. In a hypothetical world where Breath of the Wild was released in 2015 as first tease, do you think it would have been enough to save the Wii U? Would it have received the level of praise it received when it launched on the Switch and Wii U in 2017, or do you think the response would be more muted? Do you think it would have had the same impact on the game industry as a whole? For these questions, assume that the game released in exactly the same state as it did in 2017. Same gameplay, same performance, same everything, just 2 years sooner. I know that's not how game dev works, but it's a fun hypothetical to think about.
Oh, I love a good what-if situation. Yeah, unfortunately, I think if Breath of the Wild released in 2015 before Switch, it would not have had the same impact at all as it did in 2017 alongside as a launch title for Switch. I think in the latter years of Wii U, There were some amazing, high quality, great games.
It would have been just another in the lineage of great Wii U games that never had an audience, and they would have to re-release it on the next system.
Switch, and then you would have lost that initial excitement, the initial momentum that you could have gained from launching a huge game.
Right, and I can totally just imagine the headlines of like, oh, Breath of the Wild makes a Wii U worth owning, finally.
Yeah, but it's too little too late.
It was too late because this was very late in the Wii U cycle. So, I think we agree on this.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think anything could have saved the Wii U. So let's just port all the titles over, okay? So we can all play it.
Hi, X. Hey, K2 and K1, it's now the end of April 2023. At this point, what are the actual chances that we'll get Wind Waker and or Twilight Princess on Switch? If there really is a chance of a new console next year, they'd better get on it if it's coming. I've never played Wind Waker and have been trying to wait for a Switch release. Now my fate is in your hands. Do I keep waiting or do I have to buy a copy on Wii U? Kayaks, I saw you in the Discord saying you bought a copy of Wind Waker HD.
Wind Waker HD on Wii U is actually very good and a great way to play the game. I'm so jealous that you've never played this game before because you get to experience it for the first time, which is pretty cool. They have these games. They're literally sitting on these games. It's done. They're just waiting for the right time to release it. We
don't know that.
We do know that. Well, we don't know it.
We don't know that.
But I do feel like that's what's happening.
I go by, again, I like Jeff Grubb. I think he has a good line of information. He has said that these exist.
These exist.
He's not always right about like the specifics of like when something will come out or like when it'll get announced, but I go on that. So I do think they exist.
Yeah.
And again, we talk about, once the schedule starts to get shaky, these are great to sort of plug big holes in the schedule.
Yeah. So at first, now that we're like hours from Tears of the Kingdom, we were like, oh, this will be great, like quote unquote Nintendo loves like warm-up marketing. Like these two games releasing on Switch would be great warm-up marketing in the months leading up to Tears of the Kingdom to get people like into the Zelda mindset. Now I've switched my...
What's the opposite of warming up?
Cooling down.
Like an old man putting icy hot on something.
Bengay or something.
Yeah.
No, I feel like now it's like, now they're we got to sustain the Zelda momentum mode.
Okay.
Because Tears of the Kingdom will have life, but only for so long. So they might release these games as a way to do the momentum sustaining marketing, which is like, you like this Zelda game, play this one now. Try this one. They love doing that. So that could be something that they release. And if these games are done and they're just sitting on it waiting for the right timing, then it can fill a gap that they might have this year at some point, and also help to maintain the momentum of all things Zelda, which they're interested in doing. Yeah. So that's what I think. I have hope that it's still coming this year.
Okay. Then says, hello, Kit and Krysta. Here's a question for Zelda Week. Has Nintendo ever considered getting novelization done for any of their IP? With some games with so many details that could be made into a book, I feel like The Legend of Zelda could be made into an excellent book or series. They stepped into movies, why not books? It may be a good way to get to know earlier games in the series or perhaps other details we may not know about. I think this is a great idea.
This is a great idea. I would love to read a book about the Legend of Zelda series.
But
they do have those comics.
That is true. There's a lot of comics that are out there.
The thing that Nintendo dislikes, though, they have a weird like hang up about this. Is like,
what are you gonna say?
You don't know.
I really want to know what you're gonna say right now.
They don't like it when games are done in like all text or like all voice and no video. Remember when we tried to launch the Nintendo Power podcast? They like could not wrap their heads.
Like,
no
visuals.
Why would anyone want to hear about a game and not
readings
see a
for
visual?
losers?
It's like I totally see them saying this. It's like, why would anyone want to read text on a page about a game when they could be playing that game or like seeing a visual of it?
So
real hung up on that kind of stuff.
My read on this is like, so I think something like a Xenoblade Chronicles would make an amazing book.
Oh yeah, like a book
The problem
series.
with the longer we go with Zelda, the thing about Link not talking becomes a bigger issue. Because how do you do a book like, and he blinked silently? Like how many dialogue things can there be where Link just like stares at you?
Yeah, Link.
That's why I think
something.
Yeah.
And they can't have a book version Link be
That's what
the
I'm saying.
first time he says a thing.
Exactly.
Like, there's no way. They have to make a game where he says something first.
So I think this is a great idea. I actually think Zelda is a tough fit for it until they get around that.
Oh my god, they're going to make him talk! I can't stand that.
The fan riots when Link talks are, you thought Chris Pratt was...
I will be at the start of that riot line.
You thought Chris Pratt was something? Like, oh man.
You ain't seen nothing
Wait
yet.
till Chris Pratt does Link!
Don't say that. You're putting some energy out into the universe that I dislike. I really dislike this energy.
Hyrule, here we come.
This is me at the start of the picket line.
What's your pithy sign gonna say?
I don't know. Silent Prince.
Kilo Kibo has the next question. Hi, Kit and Krysta. I'm so happy to finally join the Patreon family after watching your podcast religiously since launch. It's one of the few weekly things I look forward to.
Welcome.
Very nice. Here's my question. In spirit of Zelda Week and the release of Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda fever will be at an all-time high. If Nintendo and Universal announce the development of a Zelda-based theme park, what kind of rides or attractions would you like to see? Could the formula they used in the Mario-based theme park work, or would it be better to do something completely different? I, for one, would love to chow on some dubious food at the Bokoblin Camp Cafe and then go on the Sky Island roller coaster. Keep up the great work.
Oh, that's a great question to imagine what a Zelda theme park would. And so many opportunities.
I think
Here we go.
the Nintendo Land Zelda game could actually work super well.
With the arrow.
Yes, where you're kind of on rails.
On the rails.
So you're all in like a teacup or something.
You can be like in a horse.
Fine.
Like a opponent,
But there's four of you
like sitting
on
in
a giant
opponent.
on a giant horse.
Yeah.
And like
and
one person has a little stick, like a sword, one person has like a bow.
Yeah, that's cute.
And you just go and you're wearing like the AR glasses. And wouldn't that be great?
That would be so fun. I would love that.
It's
and then,
right there.
And then you can get the points at the end.
Nintendo
like,
Land redeemed.
This is the final redemption. No octopus game, but we'll play the Zelda one for IRL. The other thing I would love is like, yeah, if they had like a cool flying one where you can sit on the back of a loft wing. Because the Harry Potter ride has.
Do you mean like a roller coaster where it's like whoa?
No, not a roller coaster. Like it like slowly kind of flies you through, and you can see like this is a stupid comparison because this ride would be much better than that. But like when you're at Disneyland and you're on the Peter Pan ride, you're in like a flying ship, and then like you can see the world of Peter Pan, like London, like an overhead view of it. So you could see like Hyrule like stretched out.
That's cool.
Below you with like all these different landmarks and all these different like cool little Easter eggs that they can put in that you could like point out like different spots in the world. I think that would be really fun.
Link has the next question. Since it's not really an option for you to avoid social media completely until Tears of the Kingdom releases, what is your strategy to avoid leaks? Clearly we have a different point of view here.
Have not. You know what? I've been on social media and I have not really come across a lot of like blatant leaks in my face. Yeah. So I'm happy that people seem to be a little bit considerate. I've seen a lot of tweets about or like posts about warning people to be careful of leaks that are in existence.
But you're not like muting things.
I haven't muted anything
on Twitter.
No.
You're not on the full blackout.
No, I'm not at all. But I haven't.
How would you feel
spoiled.
if you did just scroll and see something? Would you be upset?
I would be so mad. I would like throw my phone out the window.
Well, maybe you should be muting things then.
I'm not on it that much though. You're on social media much more than me.
You mean I'm working?
I'm
doing work?
Yeah, you're working, so you do need to do this kind of stuff. I like go to the Kit and Krysta page and retweet stuff, and that's it. So I keep my activities limited to my very small circle. But yeah, I haven't done like any muting or anything like that. People have been considerate this time around. Yeah. I do think people are considerate, which is good. You saw them. You actively seek them out.
It's like, I'll just take it. I'll take the information.
What? What? So,
yeah.
Why are you?
I'm curious. I'm curious.
So you just know what's going to happen?
I don't know everything. I haven't been like, I'm going to find everything that I can, but I've certainly seen some stuff. Yeah. I won't tell you. Don't worry.
Don't tell me.
I won't tell you.
I don't even want to look in your eyes because I feel like I'm going to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't believe that you did that.
Most games, like I don't. It's like I'll experience it in my own way.
About story.
We have different. There are different things that we come to games for. You and I.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah.
And also like movies, you don't care if you get spoiled from movies at all.
Oh no. Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Mad Dog 5981 asks, hi Kit and Krista, why do you think there has never been a remake or remaster of the original Legend of Zelda? It seems like something that would have happened by now, considering the original game is a bit difficult to play by modern standards. Other classics of the NES era have received this treatment to various degrees, such as Mario All-Stars and Metroid Zero Mission. It seems like Zelda's 35th anniversary would have been a perfect opportunity to do this, considering that Nintendo actually did not do all that much to celebrate the occasion.
You got a Game & Watch, though.
So the bad news is that this hasn't happened.
Yeah.
The good news is there are a lot of 2D like retro Zelda games that could be redone.
Right.
And I think I do appreciate that they have tried hard to like balance like the 3D and 2D Zeldas.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
my hope is that after Tears of the Kingdom, there's some sort of a 2D game, whether it's original or a remake, to just keep that alive, because I think they're both very, very valid and both have their own favorites.
They have seen those two types of games as kind of like different paths for the series as well.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Arnima talked about that before. Like they kind of see the 2D games as like smaller, more contained Zelda games, and then the 3D games being like very, grand or whatever.
Right.
So I can see that world where just they continue to exist alongside each other. And yeah, I would love a remaster of the original Legend of Zelda. I think it would be great to have some quality of life things put in and some ways to make it more accessible. Because it's very, very difficult. And it's hard for like a normal person to play that game nowadays. And I think we all owe it to the series that we love to understand the origins. So that would be great. I would love that.
Also, again, don't forget Zelda 2. Not top-down, not 3D, side-scrolling.
You just want to be scared.
Very deserving of I might play some of that game tonight, actually.
What if you get scared tonight?
I probably will.
What are you going to do?
Keep the lights on.
Yeah, lights on.
Yeah. But
crowded room.
If they do an original Zelda, Legend of Zelda remake, I would want them to do a different art style. Don't just reuse the Link's Awakening art style.
Okay. Yeah.
To me, like, it needs something a bit like less glossy than that, a bit less plasticky. It worked great for that game.
Less toy-like, more
Yeah.
lifelike. We know Link in a different capacity.
Yeah, or do
now,
something
right?
that's like cell shaded, not like Toon Link, but something that looks like some of that old artwork would be really neat. There's a lot of ways they could do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, this is that glass half full to this. Is like there's a lot that they could do, and they're probably thinking about.
And obviously they see that the interest for Zelda is very high.
Super high, so yeah.
And they're probably getting very, confident about more Zelda games.
Right.
So that's a good thing.
Robot Penguin has the next question. Hi guys, do you think we'll ever see a Zelda Maker game where we can make our own top-down Zelda levels and dungeons? They already had this in some form in the Link's Awakening remake, but I'd love it if they went ahead and made an official release of one. Would they want to make it?
I don't know, because Mario Maker 2 did not do very well.
I also think this is a no.
So this is probably going to be lower on the list.
Because
Maybe not a forever no, but lower on the list.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever see a Mario Maker 3, which is a real bummer. Like,
We'll never see it.
I love
We'll
Mario.
never see it. We'll never see
Switch
it.
2? Mario
We'll
Maker?
never. They'll just port over Mario Maker 2. They'll do like Mario Maker 2, the deluxe edition or something like that.
And fix the online.
DX!
But,
Yeah.
making a Mario level is a lot easier to do than making a
Not
whole
a lot of people can make a Zelda dungeon
or a whole Zelda game.
Although we did, the Link Awakening thing had that little bitty thing that we
was
did
very
for each
simplified.
other.
That was fun though.
Very fun. I mean, I think for it to be a whole thing on its own, though, it needs to have more to it than that. And not a lot of people have the talent to really do that.
So I think like if they thought like, oh boy, like not many people actually wanted to make stuff in Mario Maker, like it's
How are
going
they
to
gonna
be even
make-
fewer
yeah.
people doing this.
Right.
There's a game I've seen some people talking about. I think it's just called Dungeon Maker that people are saying like is basically this. I haven't tried it out, but I've seen a lot of people saying that. So Robot Penguin, maybe look into that.
There you go.
Last question is not Zelda themed at all. I lied.
Oh.
But it's a feel good. Bruce Dash. Hey, Kit and Krista, I embedded a question within this post towards the end. Here we go. With the main podcast episodes and the bonus Q&A questions combined, you've already answered well over 1,000 questions.
Wow!
Can you
really?
believe it?
No.
Do you feel that you've answered this many questions from the Patreon community? Thanks again for answering our questions and keeping up the good work.
I not
That's a lot.
any inkling
1,000.
that we answered over 1,000 questions. Brewstash, that's a great stat for us. Yeah. We love it. I think one of the unexpected, wonderful things about our Patreon community is how many great, insightful questions we get every week for both this podcast and our bonus Q&A. We always want to, answer your questions and keep talking to you guys. And so this is a really fun way for us to do that.
Yeah, this is something that when we started, I thought would sort of peter out a little bit.
Yeah.
Where there was a big rush, but people would say like, all right, we found out everything we need to know through questions. So now there's like 1 or 2 a week. But it's like every time I check that, it's like a new dump of questions, which are great.
It's awesome.
And I go through them all every week. So if we've answered 1,000, I've looked at thousands more.
You have looked at multiple
but they're all
thousands
great.
of questions.
So yeah, keep it coming. It's super fun for us to answer these. And great way to plug our bonus Q&A, Patreon exclusive at the Notification Squad and Up tiers.
Yes, the bonus Q&A is spicy. Very. They get some spicy stuff in there.
Yeah. That is it for the questions.
Wow, what an episode.
Shout out some Patreon superstars.
Yeah. Here we go. Aaron Hash.
Ben Eichhorn.
Maru Mayhem.
Eigenverse.
Kiss My Flapjack.
Mike Chin.
Mr. Rogers.
Roy Eschke.
Switching It Up _.
Safazon.
The Shark Among Men.
VGM Life.
Link, the Hero of Winds.
Angela Bycroft and her Pig Molly.
Turbocharged Nerd.
Thomas O'Rourke.
Kyle LaBeouf.
Christopher Lara.
Simon. Simon's back. Exciting times.
Couldn't keep him away for long.
No, he couldn't keep away from us. My precious Simon. All right, let's go to our beautiful One Up Club graduation ceremony. Aaron Burgundy.
Adam and Ansley.
Ajan Malari.
Ale Alejandra.
Alexandra Pratt.
Andrew Uhas.
Astrodef.
Blazed and Enthused.
Bookham Dano.
Brad SF56.
Brooke Obscura.
Brookie Kazooie.
Brewstash.
Chelly Squirrel.
Christopher Lay.
Cozy Tar.
Captain Alex.
C Roper 17.
Daniel Cold.
Daniel Phillips.
Daniel Valencia.
Dachshund.
Desert Colt 18.
D Dash.
Dolce.
Dino Punch.
Elite Peach.
Espars 50.
Fart Priest 69.
Fairbound.
Fernie and Jess Forever.
Fox Deploy.
Fred Rossi.
Frederick Ulf Conradson.
Thank God. Garrett Holfish.
Garth the Wolf.
Gartooth.
G Sun 101.
Ian Chibb.
Iris Marin.
Israel Izzy.
J Rando.
Jabroni Jones.
JBJ.
Jeffrey Hernandez.
Jerry 92602.
Jesse Hernandez.
John Responte.
Jonathan Rowe.
Jordan Collette.
Jordan Hemmerly.
Joseph DeHaze.
Joshua Clements.
Juji Fruit.
Just Camtro.
Justin Lemminger.
Kawa 2796.
Keith Kwan.
Kelpshake.
Kevin Delane.
Kilo Kibo.
Krisu.
Christopia Party With Me.
Kyle Gamer Barry Rookie.
Kyle Kretzer.
Kyler Nelson.
Linnell Stickman.
Lemma.
Lit.
Mad Dog 5981.
Marky Man 64.
Mecha Dragon 101.
Megan.
Michael Cravens.
Mikey.
Modamania.
Mr. Andy Pong.
MSM Poke Gamer.
Mr. Beans and Dip.
Mytran.
Nasir.
Nathan Burkhart.
Panda Buns.
Paul C. Pace.
Paul Gale Network.
Prime Factor.
Prince Charmless.
Reaver.
Rain Tech.
Ray Charon.
Ryuji Utsuho Oku'u.
Renee Rivers.
Rick Alvarado.
Ryoth 1.
RJ Kern.
Rob Osborne.
Rocks.
Rionetta.
Sam Newland.
Sharif Jackson.
Shinryu.
Slowbro.
Shrews.
Silly Ferret.
SJ Sharky 777.
Spicy Munchkin.
Steel Citrone.
Tales of Link.
Tefyu.
Terrastorm.
Thomas Alvarez.
Topher Schmofer.
Travis Toraline.
Troopage.
Tugs Puppy Bear.
Tusku.
Twin Dragons 76.
Tyler Geis.
Tyler and Tracy.
Vesves.
Video Game Stupid.
Virtual Bot.
Wicked Davy.
Will Ernst.
Will Johnson.
Zudaverf.
Zelgaroth.
Zapati.
Oh. Zroid.
Zroid was sweating bullets when we saw another Z come through in the One Up Club.
Why?
That might not be last anymore.
Oh. But Zapati, though. We're good.
Like the anchor of a relay. The end of the list is a very important role.
Zroid! That's his role. Oh my goodness. I can't believe that we're going to be ending this podcast and moving on to be playing Tears of the Kingdom. I am. You're not.
In a mere hours.
You guys!
It's happening.
It's happening!
Yes.
I'm so excited. Okay, well, don't forget to subscribe to us on our Patreon channel. It is patreon.com/ why did I say channel? Patreon.com/Kit and Krysta.
If you are watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe to this channel Kit and Krista.
This is a channel.
You can give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment. If you're listening on audio, you can leave a 5-star rating and also leave a review and also subscribe.
Oh boy, and follow us on the socials. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. That's it. By this time next week, we would have been playing Tears of the Kingdom for 1 whole week.
And so will you.
And so will you.
So let's go do that.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.